Chapter 661. Lei Xingfeng nodded. I know. If someone attacks the steel humanoid beasts while setting up the formation, preventing them from reaching the designated location, it will be very difficult to successfully set up the killing formation. Gao Yi said, Yes, it will only be effective if the formation is successfully set up. These steel humanoid beasts are too weak. If they are destroyed while setting up the formation, then the formation will be useless. Wu Yang said, or we can look for a higher grade puppet beast. Actually a gold grade puppet beast is pretty good. It's faster and has stronger defense. It's best to use it to set up a forbidden killing array. Everyone was silent. Gold-level humanoid beasts were considered decent existences even in the Great Forbidden Area. However, there were very few of them. A single killing formation required more than 10 of them. Lei Xingfeng didn't have many on hand. It was far from enough to set up a killing formation. After a while, Lei Xingfeng said, we can either go to the Great Forbidden Area to look for them or make our own. However, we don't know much about the creation of humanoid beasts. At most, we can make steel humanoid beasts. This is unique to the mirror world. It's a pity that steel humanoid beasts are not suitable for battle. Gao Yi said, right, I still have some ice humanoid beasts. However, only I can use them. No one else can use them. Gucci said, that's a pity. Yes, let's go to the Great Forbidden Area to look for them when we have time. Lei Xingfeng said, don't worry. I believe that once we use them, those who haven't seen them before won't be able to think of attacking them. As long as we act quickly and don't give them time to react, for example, when we release the humanoid beasts, we can purposely talk nonsense with them. Hee, these humanoid beasts are pretty good at tricking people. Wu Yang smiled. That's a good idea. We have to think about it carefully. If we can set up the formation smoothly, no matter what method we use, as long as the humanoid beasts are in place, we will win. Lei Xingfeng said, moreover, the killing formation we are designing can be said to be the first generation. As long as we have this idea, won't we continue to improve it? In the future, we have to work hard to improve this method of setting up formations. We have to make them smaller and more secretive. I believe that in the end, they will be extremely powerful. Thunderstorm said, Feng's understanding of seals is getting deeper and deeper. Indeed, we could try our luck in the Forbidden Lands. As an abandoned relic, I believe there are more good things there. It's just that we haven't ventured in yet. I have a guess that the cultivators here might not be much more powerful than the ancient people in the Forbidden Lands. Wu Yang said, yes, I think so too. Well, if there's a chance, we'll organize a group to go there. Fortunately, we have the Mirror Realm, so we can barely make it back. Otherwise, we would be helpless against a natural moat. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, all right, I'm going back. I've been out for quite some time. I don't know what will happen in the disciplinary camp. Wu Yang said, yes, you should hurry back. If something happens and you're not around, it'll be troublesome. Lei Xingfeng said, okay, if there's nothing else, I'll be back in a few days. As he said that, he went to the center of the yard and quickly returned to his home in the disciplinary camp through the Mirror Realm's secret door. After closing the passage's killing formation, Lei Xingfeng went downstairs. Ai Chi, Baspa, Grandpa Ma, and Jinny Wei were still playing mahjong. Lei Xingfeng said, is there anyone exchanging materials today? Baspa said domineeringly, now is not the time for exchanging. Ai Chi said weakly, fortunately, there's mahjong. Otherwise, I can't live like this. It's too damn annoying. Grandpa Ma said, Brother Lei, you want to play? Lei Xingfeng was not in the mood to play mahjong. He said, no, I'm not playing. Grandpa Ma was just being polite. He didn't want to give in at all. Not only was it unbearably hot here, but it was also extremely lonely. Fortunately, there was mahjong to pass the time. Even so, Ai Chi was about to go crazy. Life here was too boring. Fortunately, there was Lei Xingfeng. Otherwise, even if he didn't starve to death, he would die of thirst. Lei Xingfeng found a place to sit under the wooden shed. He looked at the thick smoke in the distance and was still thinking about how to perfect the killing formation. His hands were not idle either. He continued to refine restriction components. After giving a set of thunder-killing formation to Ai Yi, He only had a mobile one left. He still wanted to make a fixed one. He was very satisfied with the power of a fixed thunder-killing formation. A mobile one was weaker than a fixed one. The thunder-killing formation. After a period of thinking and improvement, the power of the thunder-killing formation was gradually increasing. Every time Lei Xingfeng set up the formation, he would make some adjustments and accumulate some experience. In terms of restriction, the thunder-killing formation could be said to be Lei Xingfeng's trump card. The deeper the understanding of the thunder-killing formation, the more powerful the thunder-killing formation would be. Although the moving thunder-killing formation wasn't mature yet, it could still be used. As for its effect, Xi Feng didn't have much confidence in it. But as for the fixed thunder-killing formation, Xi Feng had the confidence to increase its power by a large margin. Especially the thunder-killing formation he made last time, there were many small problems within it. This time, after refining the components, there would be some changes. It was very easy for Lei Xingfeng to modify the restriction components and refine them. He didn't return to his room. Instead, he continued to refine restriction components one after another in the wooden shed. Then, he called out the humanoid beast and integrated the restriction components into it. After an unknown amount of time, Baspa and the others exchanged materials several times. Aside from trading, the four of them would play mahjong, eat, and take a short break. They basically ignored Lei Xingfeng's work. Only AI Qi paid a little attention. He knew that Lei Xingfeng had completely lost interest in restriction components after refining them. If it wasn't for his family forcing him to learn restrictions, he wouldn't have liked it at all. In 10 days, Lei Xingfeng had finished refining another thunder-killing formation. This one was much stronger than the previous one. There were many protective measures, such as strengthening the steel humanoid beast defense, increasing its movement speed, and canceling some of its functions. This was because Lei Xingfeng didn't need the steel humanoid beast to fight. He only needed it to smoothly reach the designated location. After finishing refining the thunder-killing formation, Lei Xingfeng started refining a hallucination formation. This time, with his experience from refining the thunder-killing formation, Lei Xingfeng only used 4 components to successfully refine a hallucination formation. Of course, it was a simple hallucination formation. He used 4 silver humanoid beasts as the carriers for the restriction components. This was because the silver humanoid beasts were not only fast, but also agile. They weren't as clumsy and conspicuous as the steel humanoid beasts. After experimenting for a while, Lei Xingfeng was very satisfied. Of course, he also knew what the flaws were. However, he was already satisfied that he was able to reach this step. One had to know that there were too many people in the disciplinary camp who were stronger than him. He knew that the restrictions he had set up could only protect them temporarily. Once they walked out, the other members of the disciplinary camp would be too much of a threat to them. Without some tricks up his sleeve, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to run out. Although Du Lu had retreated, Lei Xingfeng believed that once he left the protection of the restriction circle, Du Lu would definitely attack them. Lei Xingfeng didn't plan to keep this hallucination formation for himself. It was for his younger sister, Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingyao wasn't strong enough. With this hallucination formation, escaping wouldn't be a problem. This was a gift from Lei Xingfeng to his younger sister. At this time, Lei Xingfeng realized that he hadn't seen his younger sister recently. He didn't know what she was busy with now. However, he wasn't too worried about his younger sister's safety. With a treasure like the mirror world that could allow them to return at any time, he believed that with Lei Xingyao's intelligence, she wouldn't be in danger. Taking out a big bottle of water, Lei Xingfeng drank it all in one gulp. This place was too hot. If it wasn't for his physique as a practitioner, he wouldn't be able to withstand the heat. At this time, Basiba and the others were busy exchanging materials. Lei Xingfeng stood up and walked over. AI Qi said, "Brother Lei, is it done?" Lei Xingfeng nodded. "And it's done for now. Did you get any good materials?" AI Qi sighed and said, "It's getting lesser and lesser. There's still some good materials, but many people don't come to exchange anymore." Lei Xingfeng understood that most people would only have good materials left after exchanging. Normally, they wouldn't come to exchange unless they had no other choice. The food and water they exchanged earlier could be used for a long time if they were frugal. Therefore, very few people came to exchange. Lei Xingfeng didn't think much of it. He knew that as long as he persevered, he would be able to exchange for more good materials. This couldn't be rushed. After exchanging with AI Qi and receiving the materials, Lei Xingfeng released another batch of food and water. With the help of the four of them, Xi and Feng felt much more relaxed. He provided food and water, while the other four helped to exchange for materials. They were all very happy. This place was so miserable, especially the condition of the practitioners. The four of them were shocked. One must know that practitioners were high and mighty people in the continent, but once they were sent to the disciplinary camp, even food and water would become a problem. It was said that the Death Vanguard camp was even more miserable. That place was a true hell. Of course, this was only a legend. No one had seen it for themselves. Anyways, those who entered the Death Vanguard camp did not come out alive. After entering the disciplinary camp, if one was lucky, one could still leave. This was the biggest reason why AI Qi and the others were willing to admit their guilt. Lei Xingfeng also came here because of this reason. Otherwise, he wouldn't have served them and would have left directly. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. There were no changes in the 4 seasons here. It was hot and dry all year round. There was also no rain or snow. There was nothing here except for the hot wind and dust. This was really a godforsaken place. Lei Xingfeng and the other four didn't leave the restriction circle. Even if they were going crazy from the suffocation, they still held on. Of course, Lei Xingfeng would return to the mirror realm from time to time, so he didn't feel too depressed. When a low rumbling sound was heard, followed by another. Chapter 662. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What's that sound?" Jian Yiwei's expression changed completely. He said anxiously, "The disciplinary camp's summoning bell. Those who are not here within 100 breaths will be killed without mercy. Run." He took to his heels and ran outside. Lei Xingfeng, Baspa, AI Qi, and Grandpa Ma were stunned for a moment before they followed him out. Those who were late would be killed without mercy. Who would dare to be late? Fortunately, they were all cultivators. Once they rushed, their speed would definitely be top-notch. They were as fast as lightning. When Jian Yiwei, Lei Xingfeng, and the rest arrived at the disciplinary camp's plaza, there was already a sea of people. Lei Xingfeng looked at the crowd in shock. There were too many people. It was really a sea of people. This wasn't an exaggeration at all. It was a black mass with no end in sight. People were moving like waves, and there were still many people running crazily towards this place. Buzz, there was another sound similar to a bell. Lei Xingfeng couldn't figure out what was making this sound, but it was really able to transmit people far away. 100 breaths was just 100 seconds. Soon, there was an ear-piercing sound that made everyone want to cover their ears. That sound was too unpleasant. Jian Yiwei said with a pale face, "Those who are late are done for. This is the ending sound." In an instant, a seal rose up and enveloped the crowd. Lei Xingfeng was shocked because he didn't even notice that there was a seal here. Who set up this seal? He couldn't see through it even with his eyes. It was too scary. Suddenly, other than the area enveloped by the seal, the outside was tumbling like a pot of boiling water. With just a glance, Lei Xingfeng was completely stunned. This was a protective seal, and there was actually a killing array outside. The power of this killing array made Lei Xingfeng's eyelids twitch. It was too terrifying. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but say, "I heard you guys say that there were 100,000 prisoners in the disciplinary camp. I didn't believe it, but now I do." He looked outside the restriction circle. The killing array outside had reached its highest level. This was a fire killing array. Its power could even stir up the underground magma. The first founding guard said softly, "In the outside world, unless you have the power of a mid-level Tao Lord, you're doomed." AI Qi said, "Not necessarily. If you have an excellent defensive weapon, you might be able to escape." Jian Yiwei rolled his eyes and said, "Nonsense. With such a good thing, the family must be very powerful. There's no need to come here. Most of the people here are cultivators from the subordinate sects of the Mingzhe Alliance. There are very few people from the headquarters of the Mingzhe Alliance, and even fewer people with family backgrounds. Lei Xingfeng giggled and said, AI Chi, he's scolding you. Even with your family background, you were still harmed and brought here. AI Chi said, there's nothing I can do about it. The B asterisk TCH is right. I have a family, a background, and a background. I'm just like him. Baspa's expression was rather gloomy. He said, the people outside are doomed. I didn't expect the disciplinary camp to be so ruthless. They're doomed just because they're late. Jenny Wei said, that's why I was so anxious when I heard the call. People will really die. Lei Xingfeng was thinking, would he die if he was outside? In the end, he was sure that he would not die. This was because he could sense the activation of the killing array. The activation time was enough for him to open the secret door and return to the mirror world. No matter how powerful the killing array was, it could not kill its way into the mirror world. However, this killing array still shocked Lei Xingfeng. He admitted that his killing array was not as good. The range of his killing array was much smaller. However, this killing array covered the entire camp. It looked very frightening. The killing array was activated for about 10 minutes before it gradually stopped. When the restriction protection that enveloped the crowd was removed, a huge wave of heat surged in. In an instant, the temperature rose by at least 100 degrees. That boiling hot feeling forced the cultivators to release their own defenses. Only then could they resist the invasion of this wave of heat. Soon, the mission was given out. 2/3 of the people from the headquarters were sent out, and the remaining 1/3 were on standby. Lei Xingfeng and the rest were very lucky. They stayed with the 1/3 of the people on standby. 2/3 of the people were not prepared at all. They were immediately sent to the teleportation door and were immediately sent away. There were about 60,000 people, and about 30,000 people were left behind. Jenny Wei's face was full of joy. He said, lucky, lucky, you actually stayed behind. You scare me to death. AI Chi said nonchalantly, what's there to be afraid of? There are more than 60,000 cultivators. No matter what they fight, they will be defeated. Jenny Wei sneered. Indeed, no matter what they fight, they will be defeated. However, your life might not be guaranteed. Baspa said domineeringly, it was a false alarm. Let's go back. Damn it, this is a mess. Even if we stay in the headquarters, we won't live long. Lei Xingfeng said, let's go, let's go. Don't stay here. The 5 of them quickly ran back. Before they reached their residence, they were stopped by a group of people. The group was led by Du Lu's group. Du Lu looked at them proudly and said, I thought that you guys would forever hide in that shell and not come out. Hee, now that the Great Assembly has been issued, how can you not come out? Ha, lads, who else can save you this time around? The group of cultivators who followed Du Lu all laughed wildly. They looked like big bad wolves staring at little white sheep. Baspa's expression changed. He said, there are too many people. Most of them are Dao Lord Patriarchs. There were only 2 Dao Lords among the 5 of them. They could not resist at all. AI Chi's face was pale. He said, we're finished. These people are still haunting us. It has been so long, but they're still thinking about us. Master Ma said, all right, we're going to be killed this time. Brother Lei, what should we do? Jianny Wei did not run away. He knew that it was useless. Since it was Lei Xingfeng's group, there was no way he could escape. He said, let's go back to the headquarters plaza. If they retreated to the headquarters plaza, Du Lu and the others would not dare to make a move. However, it was not easy to retreat now. This was because Du Lu had appeared behind them. Lei Xingfeng said coldly, Du Lu, what do you want? Kill us? Du Lu said proudly, kill you? No, no, no. I can't bear to kill you. I just want to capture you. Then, we can slowly play with you. Haha, I won't kill you. I'll play you to death. Ha ha. The group of people had a cruel expression on their faces. They all had strange smiles on their faces. Jianny Wei said bitterly, Brother Lei, I won't let them capture me. I'd rather die than be captured by them. Lei Xingfeng said, very well, Du Lu. Since you want to fight me to the death, come at me. As he said that, he threw out the steel puppet beast. Du Lu and the others were shocked when the steel doll beast's huge body appeared. However, they immediately realized that this puppet was extremely weak. Du Lu asked curiously, are you planning to use this thing to fight me? He was too lazy to move. Even if he stood there and let the steel doll beast hit him, he was not afraid at all. Seeing Du Lu's nonchalance, the others laughed out loud. The steel puppet beast was a low-level puppet beast. It was not a threat to these Tao Lord Patriarchs. It was too weak. Even if Lei Xingfeng took out a gold-level puppet beast, they would not take it seriously, let alone a crude steel puppet beast. No one made a move. They all watched as the steel puppet beast ran around. Lei Xingfeng was still talking nonsense. Du Lu, I'm a restriction master. Don't think you can do anything to me. If you kill me, someone will definitely come after you. He sounded like he was bluffing. Du Lu laughed out loud. You're nothing in the disciplinary camp. Restriction master? You're nothing in the disciplinary camp. In just a few sentences, the steel puppet beast ran to their positions. One of the steel puppet beasts even pushed aside a Tao Lord Patriarch, causing everyone to laugh out loud. The steel puppet beast had no intention of attacking at all. It just stood there in a disorderly manner. Actually, Exine Feng was also sweating in his heart. If someone were to shatter a steel mannequin beast with a single slap, his entire restriction would be destroyed, and with one less steel mannequin beast, it would mean that the entire restriction would fail. When all the steel mannequins were in place, Exine Feng's heart relaxed. He didn't dare to delay. This was the only method he could rely on. In an instant, he activated the forbidden killing formation. Lightning killing formation. The most amazing thing was that the restriction killing formation enveloped Du Lu. This meant that once the lightning killing formation was activated, it would be very difficult for Du Lu to escape. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning roared. The sound of thunder resounded as a blinding light suddenly appeared. Exine Feng shouted, "Old man, old AI, follow me." Du Lu didn't have time to react at all. A few bolts of lightning struck him, causing him to tremble. Green smoke rose from his body. That wasn't all, but the lightning bolts seemed to be endless. They kept striking down. This lightning killing formation almost wiped out all of Du Lu's men. Some cultivators who were watching the show were also affected. The power of the Thunder Slaughter formation was incomparably great. This was something that Lei Xingfeng had personally tested. Once it was activated, unless one had the power of a mid-level Tao Lord, one would be able to struggle out of it. Beginner Tao Lords would find it very hard to escape. Lei Xingfeng had an idea. He led Ba Siba and the other three out of the lightning killing formation and handed the control over to Jing Zia. After walking out of the thunder killing array, he immediately threw out another thunder killing array, which was a mobile killing array. The mobile killing array was formed by silver and gold puppet beasts. It began to wander around the periphery of the thunder killing array. Once someone left the thunder killing array, he would immediately activate the mobile thunder killing array and kill them by force. In any case, Lei Xingfeng was determined to kill Du Lu and his men, no matter what the consequences were. They were too much of a threat to him. At this moment, a large number of cultivators were leaving the square. They were all cultivators who were lucky enough to stay. Many of them had witnessed the massacre with their own eyes. They were all dumbfounded. They had never seen such a way of using a forbidden killing array. Chapter 663. Lei Xingfeng was going all out. He had to kill his opponents, even if he had to spend a large amount of big thunder crystals. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen if he fell into the hands of Du Lu and the others. At the very least, he would suffer a fate worse than death. Du Lu was going crazy. How could there be a thunder killing formation here? The lightning bolts made him dizzy and his brain was in a mess. He led his people and struggled madly, trying to escape the range of the killing formation. However, the power of the lightning bolts was too strong. One lightning bolt could paralyze his entire body for a few seconds, followed by countless lightning bolts. Even if he wanted to move, he had to spend a lot of energy and strength. Some people couldn't take it anymore and suddenly released their true bodies, trying to escape the formation with the power of their true bodies. However, once their true bodies were released, the lightning bolts immediately gathered and struck their true bodies. No one could withstand such a concentrated attack. Almost at the same time their true bodies were released, their true bodies were destroyed and turned into ashes. One cultivator after another was killed by the lightning. Lu was extremely terrified. Not only did he release his sword seal, but he also released his seal. Finally, a few Tao Lord Patriarchs joined forces and barely managed to block the lightning bolts that were crazily slashing down. Slowly, the 10 or so Tao Lords formed a defense and could finally move slowly. Other than the Tao Lord Patriarchs who joined forces, the others who fought alone were all killed by the lightning bolts. Finally, Lu led 15 to 16 Tao Lord Patriarchs out of the thunder-killing formation. As soon as he came out, he saw Lei Xingfeng standing not far away with many humanoid beasts around him. However, he didn't expect the humanoid beasts to be the key to setting up the killing formation. This was something that had never been done before. Lu's eyes turned red when he saw Lei Xingfeng. He roared, "I'm going to kill you." The other Tao Lord Patriarchs roared too. They knew that everyone else had died in the thunder-killing formation just now. Lei Xingfeng sneered, "Since you're tired of living, I'll send you on your way." He instantly activated the killing formation. Lu didn't expect that there was a killing array waiting for him outside. When the lightning struck, he almost cried. This was too much. Why was there no end to killing arrays? All the onlookers felt a chill in their hearts. This person was too powerful. A restriction grandmaster was actually this powerful. This was something they had never thought of. Some of the people who came from the headquarters of the Ming-Zhe Alliance finally understood why restriction masters had such a high status in the Ming-Zhe Alliance. A group of Tao Lord Patriarchs were actually defeated by the restriction killing array set up by a Heaven Monarch. There were countless casualties. Even if they managed to escape from the restriction killing array, there was still another restriction killing array waiting outside. How could they continue to fight? This time, Lu had some experience. He ordered his subordinates to form a defensive formation to temporarily block off the lightning attack. He shouted madly in the thunder-killing formation, but his voice was completely drowned out by the rumbling thunder. Lu was extremely regretful. At this point, he finally understood what a restriction master meant. It wasn't just a fart like he had said. A restriction master could really kill cultivators at the level of Tao Lords and Patriarchs in a large area. This power was simply unstoppable. Lei Xingfeng didn't just stand by and watch this time. Instead, he led Baspa and Jiani Wei into the thunder-killing formation and attacked it madly. As long as they disrupted the defense of this group of people, they would all die in the formation. Lu ordered everyone to work together to defend against the lightning attack. Then, they desperately tried to break out of the formation. However, the thunder-killing formation this time was completely different from the previous one. This time, the thunder-killing formation could move. In other words, no matter where Lu and his subordinates moved, the entire thunder-killing formation would move as well. There was no way for them to escape the range of the restriction. The thunder-killing formation was like a millstone. It ground the people in the formation bit by bit, depriving them of their defense and strength. Even Tao Lord Patriarchs couldn't withstand this kind of consumption. In the beginning, they could still barely cope with it when they worked together. However, the endless lightning attack exhausted them. Moreover, Lei Xingfeng led Baspa and Jiani Wei to launch sneak attacks. Finally, under the 3 sneak attacks, they killed a few Tao Lord Patriarchs. The defense that Lu desperately tried to maintain finally collapsed. Instantly, a few more people were exhausted and turned into ashes by the lightning. Lu watched helplessly as his subordinates were drowned by the lightning. He was so terrified that he kept shouting madly. It scared him to death. This wasn't the time to regret. Lu only wanted to escape. He didn't want to offend a restriction master in this lifetime. This thing was too terrifying. It could actually set up a restriction killing formation at any time. However, no matter how hard Lu struggled, he couldn't escape from the thunder-killing formation. He shouted in despair, I surrender. I don't want to fight anymore. However, the specialty of the thunder-killing formation was that it had endless lightning. The lightning was in the front, and the lightning was in the back. The thunder was extremely loud. If it was an ordinary person, just the sound of the thunder alone would be enough to kill a person, let alone being struck by the lightning. Very soon, Lu realized that there was no one around him. He was the only one left, and he was covered in wounds. It was useless even if he kept pouring medicine into his mouth. His medicine was all low-grade medicine, and it couldn't heal his wounds quickly. Suddenly, the lightning disappeared. Dulu looked around in a daze. His ears suddenly quieted down. It was very uncomfortable for him. Lei Xingfeng and the others looked at him coldly. Dulu looked around in shock. He realized that there were no more subordinates around. They were all turned into ashes by the lightning. Actually, Baspa, Ai, Chi, Grandpa Ma, and Jianwei were even more shocked. Disregarding everything else, this killing array had actually killed nearly 100 people in one go. Most of them were even Dao Lord Patriarchs. This was simply too frightening. Dulu was extremely flustered. He suddenly understood that he didn't have the upper hand at all. As long as the opponent released the restriction killing formation at any time, no matter how many of him there were, he wouldn't be able to kill them. He had really kicked an iron board this time. No, he had kicked an iron wall. He quickly said, "I surrender." Lei Xingfeng said coldly, "If I was caught by you guys just now, would it have worked if I said, 'I surrender'?" Du Lu said nervously, "Yes, it would have worked." This time, even Baspa and the others couldn't stop. Baspa shouted angrily, "Bullsh asterisk T." Du Lu was so frightened that he trembled. He said, Yes, I'm Bullsh asterisk Ting, Bullsh asterisk Ting." There was an uproar among the onlookers. One should know that Du Lu was considered a top figure, but he was in such a sorry state. Lei Xingfeng said, "I didn't plan to provoke you from the start, but you trapped me for so long. We didn't want to get into a conflict during this gathering. We tried our best to go back, but you guys still blocked us here. I'm curious, do I look like I'm easy to bully?" Du Lu's mouth moved. He didn't know what to say to get out of this disaster. Indeed, he thought that Lei Xingfeng and the others were easy to bully. Moreover, they had a large amount of food and water. This was what he wanted the most. Later on, he was even more envious of the materials that could be exchanged for so much food and water. This was also why he wanted to capture Lei Xingfeng alive. He wanted to torture him and make him spit out all the benefits. This was his real goal. Ai Chi sneered and said, "He's just envious. He wants to rob us when he sees that we're rich." He saw it very clearly, so he was direct with his words. The reason why Lei Xingfeng didn't kill him in the thunder-killing formation was because he wanted to let the onlookers know what happened through the conversation. Otherwise, it would be quite shocking if he killed almost 100 people in one go. He was also afraid that someone would take advantage of this. According to the viewpoint of his previous life, he should at least be on the side of reason. Although he might not have the same viewpoint as the people here, this way, Lei Xingfeng would be at ease. "I'm on the side of reason, so I can suppress you." Once Du Lu's subordinates were taken away, Du Lu's performance was just like a cultivator who met a strong enemy. He lost all his arrogance and said with a pale face, "I'm blind. I'm a bastard. There was an uproar among the onlookers. Many of them knew Du Lu. This fellow was definitely a tyrant in the disciplinary camp. They didn't expect him to be so cowardly because of few brats. Someone shouted, "Du Lu, you're not a man. Du Lu, you coward. Du Lu, you deserve to die. Why don't you go and die?" The onlookers scolded him. It was obvious that this fellow wasn't popular. Du Lu lowered his head as evil thoughts flashed in his mind. However, he couldn't make a move now. He wanted to find an opportunity to severely injure Lei Xingfeng. Even if Lei Xingfeng was a peak-stage heaven monarch, Du Lu believed that as long as he attacked with all his strength, he would definitely be able to severely injure Lei Xingfeng. Then, he would have the confidence to escape. Lei Xingfeng held the restriction in his hand. He expanded the range of the restriction to about a few hundred meters. He believed that as long as Du Lu moved, he would definitely be able to trap Du Lu in the killing formation. Du Lu wouldn't be able to escape. Du Lu lowered his head and said, "I admit defeat. Let me go this time." Ba Siba said angrily, "Let's go this time? Damn it, you're a bastard." Du Lu suddenly exploded and shouted, "I'm a bastard. Die." His body flashed as he pounced towards Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng was already prepared. When Du Lu's body flashed, he activated the thunder killing formation. At the same time, he quickly retreated. Those puppets moved at the same time. When Du Lu pounced towards him, Lei Xingfeng was already 10 meters away. He howled and jumped up again. Before he could jump off the ground, a huge bolt of lightning struck him. Boom! Thunder rumbled. This time, Lei Xingfeng used a single target attack. He didn't use a group attack and only attacked a single target. This bolt of lightning instantly froze Du Lu on the spot. Before he could recover, another thick bolt of lightning struck his body along with a deafening explosion. Bolts of lightning came one after another. The power was absolutely shocking. As it was attacking a single target, the entire killing formation's power was increased by several folds. Chapter 664. Lei Xingfeng controlled the restriction core and continuously released thunderbolts. Thunderbolt after thunderbolt, lightning after lightning. Everyone who was watching could clearly see Du Lu's miserable state. After more than 10 thunderbolts, Du Lu's body was already smoking. He couldn't hold on for much longer. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Die!" Instantly, more than 10 thunderbolts struck down. He activated all the energy in the 2 large thunder crystals in one breath. Instantly, the thunderbolts were as thick as water tanks. No one could look at them directly. Everyone closed their eyes because it was too bright. It was as if more than 10 giant cannons had exploded at the same time. Du Lu was directly turned into ashes in the violent thunderbolts. Lei Xingfeng heaved a sigh of relief. He had used up 6 large thunder crystals this time. It made his heart ache. Every large thunder crystal he used was one less. He didn't know how long it would take for the magnetic storm mountain range to condense more thunder crystals. Lei Xingfeng hated this kind of battle the most. The ground was clean, and Du Lu had disappeared without a trace. A gust of hot wind blew past, and all the onlookers couldn't help but shiver. They watched as a Tao Lord Patriarch was cleanly eliminated by a Heaven Lord. Even his ashes were blown away by the wind. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go." This time, Lei Xingfeng didn't keep the puppet beast. Instead, he walked with the puppet beast. The puppet beast was still moving according to the position of the restriction killing array. If anyone dared to attack them, he could immediately activate the restriction killing array. With Ba Si Ba and the others, Exine Feng swaggered away, returning to his own place. When he returned to the restriction at home, Basiba shouted, "Brother Lei, you're too powerful. Ha 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 ha. You actually killed so many people. That felt great. I want to learn restrictions." Xiao Qi, we're both restriction masters. Why is there such a big difference between us? AI Qi said angrily, "Brother Lei is a restriction master. I'm a restriction master. Of course there's a big difference. How can we compare?" Master Ma said, "Brother Lei, you're famous now. No one in the disciplinary camp will dare to offend you. You killed so many Tao Lord Patriarchs in one go. TSK, TSK. It's really scary. To tell you the truth, my legs are still a little weak." Aichi said, Yes. When I was blocked by Du Lu, I thought that I was dead for sure this time. I didn't expect Brother Lei to be so fierce. Haha, he actually killed all of them. This is so F***king satisfying." Jinny Wei shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect Brother Lei to be so powerful. What kind of restriction is this? It is terrifying. Are all restriction masters so powerful?" AI said proudly, "Restrictions killing, of course. In the Ming-Zhe Alliance, restriction masters were the #1 profession. The best. Otherwise, my family wouldn't force me to enter the restriction headquarters." Jian Wei said, "You still want your family to force you to go to the restriction headquarters? Sai, you really don't know how lucky you are. Even if we want to learn, we can't find a place. We can only cultivate desperately and look for materials to advance. That's the real hard work. In the end, even if we become Tao Lord Patriarchs, we're still cannon fodder." Exine Feng spoke. "Didn't I also become cannon fodder? Last time, during the war in Weiqiang continent, I was the cannon fodder of the cannon fodder. If I didn't know how to use restrictions to kill a large group of outsiders, I wouldn't have been able to go to the headquarters of Ming-Zhe Alliance." Jian Wei said, "You actually went to the Tail Spear continent. Our discipline camp also went there and lost a lot of people. However, it wasn't our mission in the later stages. I heard that a lot of people from the Death Vanguard camp died, so it was our discipline camp's turn. Lei Xingfeng said, "You guys might be better off. Almost all the experts we recruited from the sects were killed. Very few came back alive." Jianny Wei said, "Oh, it's time to waste the experts again?" Lei Xingfeng said, "You know," Jianny Wei said, "everyone knows. It's not the first time. Wasting the experts is the strategy of the Ming-Zhe Alliance. Many people know about it, and no one objects to it." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Why?" Grandpa Ma said, "It's very simple. A sect's resources are limited. Generally, those who cultivate to the Tao Lord realm have reached the peak in the lower sections. However, they consume the most resources. In order to not hinder the development of the lower sects, this group of people must be drawn out and used up. Otherwise, even if the Ming-Zhe Alliance keeps fighting, they won't be able to gather enough resources. The ones who would naturally consume resources were the sects below. The headquarters of the Ming-Zhe Alliance and its direct headquarters would not have such a problem. They were the ones who truly benefited. Of course, the outstanding people in the sects below did not have such a problem. For example, if you relied on limited resources to become a mid-level Tao Lord or a high-level Tao Lord, the headquarters would transfer you to the headquarters. Of course, if you had the ability to become a monarch, the Ming-Zhe Alliance would directly transfer you to the headquarters and let you be an elder of the headquarters. Once you reached the monarch level, the entire Ming-Zhe Alliance's resources would lean towards you. This was publicly acknowledged. The ones who were truly consumed were those Tao Lord patriarchs who could not advance or needed excessive materials to advance. These people were the most important consumables of the Ming-Zhe Alliance. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. Actually, many patriarchs of the small and medium-sized sects don't know about this. AI Chi said, "There's no need to let them know. Otherwise, many of them will escape." Bath said domineeringly, "Escape my ass. They can't escape. You don't understand." AI Chi said, "Who can bother them? Whether they are cannon fodder or consumption, it has nothing to do with us." Lei Xingfeng said, "Forget it. Let's not talk about this. They actually sent so many people for this big gathering. Where's the battle this time?" Everyone looked at Jianny Wei. After all, this guy had lived here for the longest time. Jianny Wei sighed and said, "I've been with you all these days. Who knows what's going on? Why don't I go and ask around?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, Go and ask around. Where's the battle this time? Why are the people from the disciplinary camp being mobilized? Most importantly, when will the people who stayed behind be recruited?" Jianny Wei said, all right. I'll go and ask around. All right, give me some food and water. It's the best to ask around." Lei Xingfeng didn't hesitate to give him a large amount of food and water. These things weren't valuable at all. It was just hard to get them here. Jianny Wei put the food and water into his hidden Luin space before leaving. Since he had killed Du Lu and the others, he didn't have to worry about anyone outside trying to harm him. He ran out of the restriction circle. He had some friends too. Of course, they weren't good friends. They were more familiar with each other. It was impossible for them to do difficult things for him. However, it wasn't a problem for him to ask around for information. Moreover, he had food and water. Seeing Jianny Wei leave, Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, let's stop trading for materials for now. I feel like we won't be staying in the camp for long." AI Chi sighed. He looked in the direction Jianny Wei left and said, "All right, bitch isn't here for now. We need one more player. Brother Lei, shall we play mahjong together?" Lei Xingfeng said, "You three can play poker by yourselves. I'm not in the mood for mahjong." AI Chi's face turned bitter. He didn't know why, but the development of poker was very slow. On the other hand, mahjong was spreading like wildfire. Most people who came into contact with mahjong liked it. AI Chi said, "Poker isn't as fun as mahjong. Brother Lei, come on. Lei Xingfeng said, "No. Grandpa Ma and Baspa obviously want to play mahjong too." They said, "Brother Lei, let's play one round." Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the three of them. Wasn't this addiction a little too strong? He turned around and left. As he walked, he said, I still need to modify the thunder-killing formation. I don't have time to play mahjong. The three of them didn't dare to persuade him again. Just now, they relied on Lei Xingfeng's forbidden killing formation to save their lives. Therefore, when Lei Xingfeng said that he was going to modify the forbidden killing formation, they didn't dare to delay him. This thing was not only Lei Xingfeng's life-saving means, but also their life-saving means. Lei Xingfeng returned to his room and sat in the middle. He began to think about the battle just now. This battle was very important to him. He saw the weakness of the thunder-killing formation. This weakness was quite fatal. Once the other party was prepared, as long as he released the puppet beast, the other party would attack the puppet beast with all their strength. Then, his forbidden killing formation would be useless. The crux of the forbidden killing formation was that the puppet beast had to reach the designated location for the forbidden killing formation to be activated. If it was interrupted, the forbidden killing formation wouldn't be activated. If even one puppet beast was killed, the entire forbidden killing formation would be incomplete and unable to be activated. Once this weakness was discovered, the forbidden killing formation would be finished. Of course, Lei Xingfeng could use all sorts of methods to ensure the puppet beast's safety. However, it would be very difficult to set up the forbidden killing formation immediately, unless he had a group of subordinates to pin down the enemy and give him 10 seconds to set up the forbidden killing formation. Among the people in front of him, whether it was Baspa or Jinny Wei, even if they were Tao Lord Patriarchs, they wouldn't be of much use. Battles nowadays were rarely one-on-one. A small number of people wouldn't amount to much. Other than that, the other problems weren't too big. As for the modification of the forbidden killing formation itself, those were small problems that were exposed. Lei Xingfeng summoned the puppet beast and began to adjust and repair it. Some of the forbidden killing formation's components were already loose or damaged. This required Lei Xingfeng to repair in time. After spending a day repairing and adjusting, the two forbidden killing formations improved a little. As a forbidden killing formation master, he had to constantly explore and learn to improve his skills. Lei Xingfeng understood this very well. Therefore, he was very serious about this. Chapter 665. After this battle, Lei Xingfeng's knowledge of seals had increased by another level. He was gradually consolidating his knowledge of seals. When he came outside again, Jinny Wei had just returned. This guy was sitting at the table, eating and drinking. When he saw Lei Xingfeng come down, he said, "Brother Lei, I just came back." Lei Xingfeng sat beside him and picked up a piece of braised meat to eat. He said, "How is it?" Jinny Wei said, "The situation is not good. The place we went to this time is said to be very dangerous. The location of the continent we went to this time is close to the outer realm, close to the center." Aichi's face suddenly changed. He said, "What?" The outer realm was a very interesting place. The border was very desolate, but the center was a place rich in resources. The deeper one went, the more benefits one would get. At the same time, the danger was also greater. Regardless of whether it was humans, outsiders, or beasts, they were all very powerful. The Mingzhe Alliance was unquestionably the overlord of this area. However, once they entered the center of the continent, they might not have the upper hand. Jinny Wei said, "Don't be surprised. The Mingzhe Alliance has been coveting the center of the continent for a long time. Although we are very close, we are not in the center of the continent. The Scarlet Continent is the outpost continent. Don't you know?" Aichi said, "Of course I know. However, I heard from the elders of my family that even monarch-level experts do not dare to go in. Us cultivators, aren't we courting death if we go in?" Jinny Wei said, "It's not that serious. The center of the continent is as many as the stars. What are you afraid of? If you want us to die, just kill us. I heard that the people in front are just scouting. Soon, we will enter. I heard that it is a relic continent." A relic continent was a specific continent. It was a continent that had powerful cultivators in ancient times. Due to migration or extermination, what was left was a relic continent. There were many such continents in the outer realm. If the Ming-Zhe alliance was exterminated or migrated, then the Ming-Zhe continent would also be a relic continent. Therefore, there were many remnant continents in outer space, but very few of them were valuable, especially those that could be excavated. For millions of years, various races and intelligent extraterrestrials would think of ways to occupy any ancient remnant they discovered and then slowly excavate it. Therefore, now that a remnant was discovered, there would immediately be forces invading it. Lei Xingfeng also understood this principle. Just like the Forbidden Land, it was a classic relic. It was a relic. However, the Forbidden Area was a migratory ruin, so its value wouldn't be very high. The best ruin was one where an accident happened and the entire race was destroyed. Then, there would be a lot of useful things left behind. No force would give up on such a ruin. Of course, there were also many dangers in the ruin. It was normal for people without a certain level of strength to die in the ruin. This time, the Ming-Zhe alliance had discovered a relic continent. The first batch to go were the people from the discipline camp. They were the scouts, the sentinels, and any danger would be borne by them. Of course, if they really found treasures, or if the place was not that dangerous, then they would quickly retreat. The Ming-Zhe alliance would then send other people. In other words, there would be no benefits for you, but you would have to bear the losses. Lei Xingfeng said, if they don't send us, then the relic won't be too dangerous. If they send us, then it will be dangerous. Everyone nodded in agreement. This was a very obvious fact. AI Chi let out a long sigh and said, we still have a long time before we can be released. This period of time is too difficult. If we are not careful, we might be played to death. If we go over and die in the ruins, there will be no news at all. Everyone showed a trace of bitterness. In this place, once an order was given, then it must be carried out. If they dared to resist, then there was basically no chance of survival. Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, no, we are too weak. If we go, then we will basically die. We need to gather more people and find more partners. Only by working together will we have a chance of survival. Master Ma said, but who knows us? Who would be willing to work with us? AI Chi said, that's right. There are no good people here. Who will work with us? Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, this has nothing to do with good people or bad people. The most important thing is to protect our own lives. In addition, I think we have food and water, which is a very important weapon. We need to use this weapon to gather a group of people. We need at least 20 or 30 Tao Lord Patriarchs. AI Chi said with a bitter face, even if there are 20 or 30 Tao Lord Patriarchs, I don't think they will be of much help to us. I believe that if we are sent over, then we will encounter extremely powerful experts. Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, old AI, you are a restriction master. As long as I successfully set up the restriction, you have seen how powerful it is. What is there to be afraid of? Baspa slapped his thigh and shouted, that's right. With Brother Lei's restriction, we have nothing to be afraid of. AI Chi also reacted. He smiled and said, that's right. Sigh, I was also scared silly. With Brother Lei, we really don't have to be afraid. Jianny Wei was still calmer. He said, we have too few people. Brother Lei is right. We need some helpers. Let me handle this. I will find people to join us. Baspa patted his shoulder and said, this really needs to be done by Bitch. He is more familiar with this place than we are. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, Yi-Wei, you will be in charge of this. At least 10 Tao Lord Patriarchs. If possible, 20 would be even better. He did not dare to say more. Who knew if others were willing to join? Jianny Wei said, all right, Brother Lei, what if there are too many people who want to join? Lei Xingfeng said, it's not good to have too many people. We can't command them. At most, we can't have more than 50 people. They must all be cultivators who are Tao Lord Patriarchs or above. His appetite had grown. He had asked for Tao Lord Patriarchs. His secret sect only had one Tao Lord Patriarch. It was really pitiful. Jianny Wei agreed and immediately walked out. Everyone knew in their hearts that they had to hurry up. Lei Xingfeng was actually not afraid. He had been to many ruins and knew how precious they were. Once he entered the ruins, he would be able to rely on the mirror world. He knew that after the ruins were cleaned up, the people who would truly excavate the ruins would definitely not be them. It would definitely be the elders of the various departments. Others would not have the chance to enter at all. Instead, he hoped to get this opportunity. As long as he made the arrangements, such as finding enough bodyguards, Lei Xingfeng would be very interested in entering the ruins. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, let's wait for Wei to come back. I'll go back to my room first." With that, he turned and left. AI Chi shouted, "Brother Lei, we need one more person. We need one more person." Lei Xingfeng ignored him. He did not want to waste time playing mahjong. Moreover, he wanted to take advantage of this time to go back to the mirror world and bring back more food and water. Jian Wei would bring many Dao Lord Patriarchs over. These people had to be supplied with some supplies. Lei Xingfeng returned to the mirror world after activating the killing array on the passageway. During this period, Lei Xingfeng returned frequently. As one of the pillars of the secret sect, even Wu Yang could not ignore his movements. Therefore, there were always people waiting in his courtyard. Once Lei Xingfeng returned, someone would immediately inform them, and everyone would gather. Therefore, a few minutes after Lei Xingfeng returned, Wu Yang and a large group of people rushed over. Lei Xingfeng said, "Prepare food and water for me. This time, I can't stay for long. I'll have to leave soon." Wu Yang immediately ordered his subordinates to make the arrangements. He smiled and said, "What's the matter this time?" Lei Xingfeng said, "The shattered continent." Gao Yi said, "What shattered continent?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "A shattered continent was discovered. As the cannon fodder of the punishment camp, we might go there. A group of people have already gone there. If it goes well, we might not go. But if it doesn't and too many people die, it will be our turn to go there." Wu Yang said, "Is it very dangerous?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "I don't know for now. Of course, if it's really dangerous, the possibility of us going is very high." Thunderstorm cursed and said, "Can we not go?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "We have to go whether we want to or not. If we don't go, we'll die. I believe no one dares to not go." Thunderstorm said, "At worst, we'll leave the Mingzhe alliance." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "No, I want to go. This is the shattered continent. Who knows what good things there are? I don't want to let go of such an opportunity." Wu Yang nodded and said, "That's true. You can leave the Mingzhe alliance at any time. You don't have to worry about anything. Is there anything you want us to do?" Lei Xingfeng said, "No, wait for me. If there's a chance in the future, we'll go explore the hidden sect. Now is not the time." Wu Yang smiled and said, "All right, with you in the Mingzhe alliance, there will be a lot more opportunities. Recently, we've already dug up a lot of good ores. In addition, we've already given up on the mine we went to at the beginning. Most of the ores have been dug out. The remaining ones aren't worth the risk, so we've all retreated. Now, we're concentrating on digging up the ore veins near the Ring Crystal Mine." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Don't be too greedy. In addition, bury the passage. Try not to leave any traces." Gucci said, "It's impossible not to leave any traces. As long as the other party excavates, they will discover the mystery. They can still find us by following the clues. However, we won't give them the chance. Once they've dug up enough, we'll leave." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "That's good. There will be a lot of opportunities in the future. We don't need to take too many risks." Wu Yang said, "A phone, don't worry. We'll keep an eye on the progress. You have to be careful." Chapter 666. Lei Xingfeng said, "Grandmaster, don't worry. I'm very afraid of death. I'll be very careful. Besides, our secret sect hasn't developed yet. I won't take too big of a risk." Wu Yang was just worried, just like how an elder would worry about a junior. He couldn't help but remind him. In fact, he was more worried about Lei Xingfeng than anyone else. He knew that this guy would never fight a battle he wasn't confident in. He said, "What's special about this shattered continent? Did you get any news?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm not sure about the details. The only thing I know is that this shattered continent isn't simple. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent more than 60,000 cultivators to the disciplinary camp. Wu Yang said in shock. More than 60,000? Right, the disciplinary camp is filled with punished cultivators. Why are there so many of them? Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, just the disciplinary camp alone has 100,000 people, not to mention the branch camps. The cultivators going this time aren't just from the disciplinary camp. There are many cultivators from the disciplinary camp as well. The size of the Mingzhe alliance is beyond our imagination. Every time Lei Xingfeng mentioned the Mingzhe alliance, the upper echelons of the secret sect would sigh. They were even quite afraid of such an organization. It was too big. It gathered the strength of countless cultivators. Even a number of prisoners was beyond imagination. Wu Yang said, we don't know how many of the secret sect from our hometown are still alive. I reckon that there are only a few monarch rank experts who can find someone to rely on. It will be very difficult for them to exist independently. Lei Xingfeng said, yes, monarch rank experts are enough to be elders in the Mingzhe alliance. They can occupy some resource lands. However, the entire secret sect is going to be disbanded. It will be very difficult for them to support a secret sect. Perhaps they will become a family clan. Hee. In the Mingzhe alliance, there are many such families. It's just that they will no longer have the right to be independent. Without an independent sect, it meant that they had to rely on a large force. Of course, this choice was not bad. The worst were those secret sects that did not even have a Tao Lord Patriarch. Once they were discovered, they would probably be destroyed. After entering the continent in the outer realm through Lei Xingfeng's secret sect, they would only have a slight contact with the local sects before they would be attacked and killed. They would not even give them a chance. Wu Yang nodded and said, that's right. Up until now, I've lost contact with all the secret sections. I can't find them at all. These secret doors were like small rivers flowing into the sea, instantly merging into the sea. Whether they lived or died, it really depended on luck. However, so far, no one had found any secret door that could be mixed out. Lei Xingfeng said, everyone, hurry up and cultivate. No matter what, our secret sect has gathered a lot of materials. Those who need to level up, level up. Those who need to find materials, look for materials. Our strength is too weak. There's no way we can enter the continent. Wu Yang said, let's take it slow. There's no need to rush. I believe that as long as there's time, we will eventually succeed. In fact, even Wu Yang himself did not have much confidence when he said this. After seeing the vastness of the Mingzhe alliance and the resources of the Mingzhe alliance, he really did not know when the hidden sect would be able to stand out. These words were to comfort everyone and also to comfort himself. He did not have any confidence at all. Lei Xingfeng, of course, could tell that Wu Yang lacked confidence. In fact, he also did not have confidence. When the gap was so large, even if he tried to catch up, it would be difficult for him to have the confidence to catch up. Gucci said, just be yourself. Wu Yang said, yes, just be yourself. There's no way we can compete with them now. Lei Xingfeng put away the food and water. This time, there was a lot of food, so it took a few hours. Lei Xingfeng ate a delicious meal cooked by Jean Depang before rushing back home. When he came out of the passage, he saw Jianyi standing on the ground, looking up at the passage. When he saw Lei Xingfeng come out, he could not help but be overjoyed. Brother Lei, Lei Xingfeng floated down and said, how is it? Jianyi said happily, there's no problem. Many people want to join. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, how many people? Jianyi said, more than 200 people. This is under the condition that I did not publicize it. I just found a few friends and told them. In the end, many people wanted to join. I did not dare to delay and rushed back. They will be here in a while. A short while later, quite a few Tao Lords began to arrive from outside the barrier. Lei Xingfeng asked Jianyi to go out and welcome them. At the same time, he released his steel dolls and set up a thunder-killing array. He was afraid that someone would cause trouble. With the thunder-killing array, he was not afraid of these Tao Lord Patriarchs. Lei Xingfeng arranged the steel dolls in a more sparse formation. This meant that the area covered by the thunder-killing array was quite large. Those who came in would be completely enveloped by the thunder-killing array. Uncle Ma and AI Chi looked at each other and smiled knowingly. They knew that Lei Xingfeng was prepared and were relieved. Jinny brought in 10 Dao Lord Patriarchs. Lei Xingfeng asked Baspa and the others to set up the tables. Then he asked Jinny to go out and invite more people in. In less than half an hour, more than 70 Dao Lord-level cultivators had arrived. Lei Xingfeng originally planned to recruit 20 Dao Lord Patriarchs. He did not expect so many people to come. They were all Dao Lord-level experts. Of course, they were all beginner Dao Lords. There were more than 70 people, but less than 8 tables were filled. There were still people arriving. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Why are there so many people?" AI Chi said, "You are a restriction master. Even if you don't have food and water, it is easy for you to recruit people." Lei Xingfeng was enlightened. So there was this reason. No wonder so many people came when Jinny went out and announced it. AI Chi continued, "Moreover, you just killed so many Dao Lord-level experts. They are very strong. Of course, they will choose to follow a restriction master. Even if they go to dangerous places, they can protect their lives, right? I wouldn't be surprised if more people came. This is because Bitch didn't advertise. If she did, more people would come." Baspa and the others were delighted. The more people there were, the stronger they would be. Everyone knew this. However, it was impossible to gather so many experts without a suitable reason. Cultivators were very proud. It was a tradition in the Mingzhe Alliance to be a restriction master's guard. It was an excellent job, not to mention food and water, which were in short supply. Even if they didn't have these things, the practitioners would still join Exine Feng's group. More than 100 people came, including those who came before. There were almost 200 people. Lei Xingfeng did not want to wait any longer. He said, "All right, everyone listen to me." The noisy scene suddenly quieted down. All the Dao Lord Patriarchs looked at Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng said, "Everyone knows about this mission. The first batch has already passed. There might be a second and third batch soon. Therefore, I need a certain number of guards. There is no reward, only food and water. Those who are willing to follow me can stay. Those who are not, please leave." One of them said, "I'll stay." Another person said, "Other than food and water, what other benefits are there?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Nothing else. I'm recruiting this time to save my life." A few people got up and left without saying anything. However, when they left, more than 10 people came in. Bath said, domineeringly, "This time, we are recruiting restriction grandmasters as guards. If you perform well in the battle, you may join the restriction grandmaster's guards. Of course, we won't force you. If you don't want to stay after the battle, you can leave." Aichi said, "Yes. Those who want to be the restriction master guards can register with me later. If you're only joining temporarily, you don't have to come to me." This time, no one left. The restriction master had a very high status in the Mingzhe Alliance. Lei Xingfeng could deeply understand this during this recruitment. At least half of the people went to register with Aichi. In fact, he did not want to recruit so many guards. It must be known that once one became his guard, he was responsible for providing a certain amount of materials. This amount would increase as the number of people increased. For Lei Xingfeng, it was a huge burden. However, he had to deal with this crisis first. At this point, many things could be ignored. In the end, more than 230 Dao Lord Patriarchs came. More than 100 of them asked to become guards. This number was far beyond what Lei Xingfeng could accept. With his position as a restriction master, he could bring 20 to 30 Dao Lord Patriarchs as guards. This time, there were too many people. Most of the people who asked to become guards were cultivators who had witnessed Lei Xingfeng killing Du Lu and the others. They knew that Lei Xingfeng was very strong. With a restriction master like him, their chances of surviving outside would be greatly increased. Some people who did not want to join the guards did not know Lei Xingfeng's strength. Soon, AI Chi finished registering. He said, "Brother Lei, 112 people have joined the guards." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "I can't afford to raise so many." AI Chi said softly, "Accept them first. We don't know how many of them can survive." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Yes, it's better to have some people than none." Hee hee. They took out a large amount of food and water to fill their stomachs. Just this alone made the Tao lords very satisfied. It was only in the discipline camp that they could gather so many experts at such a small price. It would be very difficult to do so in the Ming-Zhe alliance. On that day, more than 30 Tao lords stayed while the others left temporarily. These people were the people who had signed up to become guards. Most of them were alone, so they decided to stay. Lei Xingfeng was busy getting to know them. As his guard, he had to be familiar with these experts. The exchange of food was temporarily suspended. The atmosphere in the discipline camp was getting heavier by the day. Lei Xingfeng and the others were also waiting anxiously. The others did not want to go. Only Lei Xingfeng hoped to be sent by the discipline camp. Chapter 667. What Lei Xingfeng wanted the most was the coordinates of the Shattered Continent. As long as he went there, he would be able to go there through the mirror world. Ordinary seals wouldn't be able to stop him. Even a powerful seal like the Heavenly Moat couldn't stop him from communicating with the mirror world. After more than 70 days of waiting, the disciplinary camp finally gathered all the prisoners once again. During these days, there were still some people who wanted to join. However, Lei Xingfeng, Ai Qi, and the others discussed and decided to reject them. The more people there were, the harder it would be to manage them, especially when they were all Tao Lord Patriarchs. Lei Xingfeng really wanted a mid-level Tao Lord Patriarch. However, even if there were mid-level Tao Lord Patriarchs in the disciplinary camp, they wouldn't run over to Lei Xingfeng to be his guard. These people usually had many subordinates around them. Their status wasn't inferior to Lei Xingfeng's. Moreover, cultivators at their level had a lot of appeal. Many cultivators were willing to follow them. Lei Xingfeng investigated and found that there were at least 20 mid-level Tao Lord Patriarchs in the disciplinary camp. Each of them had hundreds or even thousands of subordinates. They were all people who ruled over a region. Some of them had even tried to recruit Lei Xingfeng. Because Lei Xingfeng had too many secrets, he would have chosen a suitable expert to join them. The entire disciplinary camp could be said to be filled with experts. Slowly, Xi and Feng began to understand the actions of the Ming-Zhe alliance. When the Ming-Zhe alliance couldn't handle so many Tao monarch old ancestors, they didn't have many choices. They could either start a war to exhaust them or find a mistake to send them into the disciplinary camp. In the disciplinary camp, you wouldn't be able to obtain any resources. Being able to eat and drink enough was already a good treatment. It was impossible for this group of bitter cultivators to rebel. It was also impossible for them to escape. Therefore, they could only endure bitterly. Their highest goal was to survive. As long as they were alive, there was still hope. Standing in the plaza of the disciplinary barracks, more than 10,000 people were mobilized this time. Lei Xingfeng and the other four were all present, and among the people gathered, there were more than 60 people. Fortunately, there were many people who signed up at the beginning. If there were fewer people, there probably wouldn't be more than 60 experts following them. Lei Xingfeng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He could go to the Shattered Continent now. Moreover, he had more than 60 Tao Lord and Patriarch level experts under his command. This way, his safety would be guaranteed. Luckily, everything was prepared. Lei Xingfeng had removed the 2 seals at his original residence. The reason why he did so was because he needed seal components. Now, in his hidden moon space, there were a few seal components that he could use to set up a large formation. More than 60 Tao Lord Patriarchs surrounded Lei Xingfeng, keeping him under tight protection. Following the large group of people, they arrived at the large teleportation gate. Soon, everyone arrived at the Shattered Continent. Everyone who saw the snow let out a strange cry of joy. Snow was also water. On the Scarlet Continent, water was the thing that was lacking the most. Seeing the ground covered in snow, these cultivators were all excited. This place would no longer lack water. Of course, this place was still desolate. It was just that it wasn't scorching hot. Instead, it was incomparably cold. Heavy snow swirled, and the ground was covered in snow. It was a vast expanse of white in front of their eyes. Coming out of the teleportation gate, Lei Xingfeng saw a huge campsite. There were wooden houses and the roofs were piled with thick snow. There were densely packed dots on the snowy ground, and they were all moving groups of people. As they walked out together with the group, the snow actually reached their waists when they stepped on it. Everyone floated up and was about 1 meter above the ground while their feet stepped on the snow. Fortunately, they were all cultivators, and the weakest among them was at the Heaven Monarch realm. This kind of snow wouldn't be an obstacle for them. The black mass of people moved quickly, and soon they entered the streets of the campsite. Lei Xingfeng didn't have to worry about these things. He had a group of subordinates to do it for him. This was the benefit of having guards. According to the principle of voluntariness, every 100 people were in a group. Because of the bribe of food and water, the 60 over Dao Monarch Realm patriarchs were in Lei Xingfeng's group. They were also assigned to live together in a small wooden house. Lei Xingfeng walked into the wooden house. It was a very simple residence, with wooden walls, a wooden ceiling, and a wooden floor. There was nothing in the room, and it was just as cold as outside. The thin layer of wooden planks couldn't block the cold at all. Lei Xingfeng also noticed that there were large gaps between the planks, and the cold wind blew in through the gaps. 5 people to a wooden house. The room was quite small, and it was very crowded with 5 people. Ai Chi said with a cold face, "Damn, why is the room so small? How are we going to live in it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's just passable. It's good enough that we have a place to live. There are so many people, and they built so many wooden houses in one go. The punishment camp is doing well." Baspa took out a brazier, piled some charcoal, and burned it. He said, "This cold is nothing. I think it's much better than the heat." Lei Xingfeng said, "First guard, organize some people to gather information. I want to know the situation here." First guard nodded and said, "Grandpa Ma, come with me." Grandpa Ma stood up and said, "Why are you dragging me along? You can go by yourself." First guard said, "Let's go, Grandpa Ma. Stay with me. We can still talk. It's hard to be alone." Grandpa Ma muttered a few words, but still followed first guard out. The fire in the brazier was lit, and the room suddenly warmed up. However, the cold wind that blew in through the cracks of the wooden planks did not maintain the temperature for long. Once the fire was extinguished, the room would still be cold. The red charcoal emitted heat. Ai Chi took out a few purple roots and stuffed them directly into the fire. Lei Xingfeng knew that this was the purple jade root. It was the root of a plant. After being roasted in the charcoal fire, it would be sweet and soft. It was very delicious. Lei Xingfeng said curiously, "You have the purple jade root? Why didn't I see you take it out before?" Ai Chi said, "I forgot long ago. If it wasn't for the fire, I wouldn't have remembered." The whistling wind passed through the cracks of the wooden planks, making a strange sound. Lei Xingfeng reached out and touched the charcoal. This temperature was not enough to burn his fingers. Baspa added a few more pieces of charcoal. He watched the fire rise little by little and then extinguish. A faint green smoke rose in spirals. Baspa said, "I don't know what will be waiting for us." Ai Chi said, "We don't care so much. As long as we can stay alive and return, it's fine." Sigh, I really miss the Mingzhe alliance. Home is still the most comfortable. Lei Xingfeng said, "I wonder how Bai Xia is doing. He should have been punished more severely than us." Ai Chi curled his lips and said, "Not necessarily." Baspa said, "If his family can't handle it, then he will most likely go to the Death Vanguard camp." Ai Chi said, "I don't think so. If he goes to the Death Vanguard camp, it's basically impossible to come out alive. His family will definitely stop him." Baspa said, "This time, it's mainly because someone is messing with them. Otherwise, we wouldn't have come to the discipline camp. Forget it, don't mention this guy. He caused us all to fall." Ai Chi said, "Yeah, this bastard. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have been so greedy. In the end, I've never thought of entering the discipline camp in my life." Baspa said, "Don't talk nonsense. Since you dare to do it, you dare to admit it. Don't act like a coward. In any case, you're still from the headquarters." Ai Chi's face turned red. He turned his head away and stopped nagging. In fact, he also understood that he shouldn't complain so much. In the beginning, no one forced him to do this. In just a moment, Jianwei ran back. Lei Xingfeng put hot water on the charcoal fire. Jian Wei came over just as the water boiled. He poured a cup of hot water and said, "Drink some hot water first." Ai Chi wasn't afraid of the heat. He poured the water into his mouth in one gulp and wiped his mouth. He said, "There's not much news. Only a few, but none of them are good news." Ai Chi said, "Hurry up and tell me. What's the news?" Lei Xingfeng's heart sank slightly. If it wasn't good news, then it must be bad news. Jian Wei poured another cup of water. This time, he drank a mouthful before saying, "Most of the people who came before us have left. The news they sent back isn't good. I heard that many people died, and they don't know how they died. A large number of people died. Regardless of cultivation level or status, they died very quickly. It's very terrifying. Even a Tao Lord Patriarch wouldn't be able to escape from them. There's also a large number of golems. I have no idea why there's so many of them. There are tens of thousands of them, and they're quite strong. Every time we run into them, if we don't have enough people on our side, we'll be swamped by them and won't even be able to escape. The golems will even self-detonate. If it was just one or two of them, that wouldn't be a big deal. But these things can go on for 7 or 8 at a time." When they heard this, they felt a chill run down their spines. They were already cold, but now they felt even colder. Jian Wei continued, "This is just the situation outside. We still don't know what's inside. In such a short time, thousands of people have died. The previous batch didn't want to continue, so they sent us here. In other words, we have to take over the mission." Ai Chi couldn't help but curse. "Damn bastards. Aren't they sending us to our deaths?" Bath said domineeringly, "They're sending us to our deaths. Sai, this is troublesome." Lei Xingfeng said, "What's the reason for those who suddenly died?" Jian Wei said, "I heard that apothecaries have been sent, but they haven't found any problems. I heard that those who died with a smile." Ai Chi was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He said, "Sai, don't scare me." Jian Wei said, "Why would I scare you? It's true. As long as they died, they would have a strange smile on their face. It's creepy. I heard that they burn the bodies." Bathba couldn't help but curse. "That's really King scary." Chapter 668. Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and shook his head. "There's too little information. I can't tell. It looks like they were frozen to death." "But," Bath said, "don't be ridiculous. How is that possible? Cultivators frozen to death? Many Tao Lord Patriarchs were frozen to death? I don't believe it." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "I don't believe it either. But the strange smile on their face is usually the expression of someone frozen to death." Ai Chi did not understand at all. He said, "Frozen to death will smile. Don't guess?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm not guessing. People who freeze to death will indeed smile. I'm sure of that. What doesn't make sense is that even low-level cultivators won't freeze to death easily, let alone Tao Lords. It's like a joke." Baser said domineeringly, "Yes, that's what I think as well. How cold must it be to freeze a Tao Lord to death?" Lei Xingfeng said, "If they didn't freeze to death, then there's something we don't know about. If we're sent there, we have to be careful and figure out the reason. No one wanted to die, but it was not up to them to decide whether they would die or not. Especially in this kind of ancient ruins, who knew what strange traps were waiting for them. Similarly, the dangers of the ruins were one aspect, but there were also many unknown treasures in the ruins. If they could find something suitable for themselves, it would be of great benefit to their future cultivation and development. This was also the reason why cultivators would risk their lives to enter the ruins, even if they knew that it was dangerous. The newly arrived cultivators were all waiting anxiously, not knowing when they would receive their orders. The next day, someone notified them to collect food, but there was no order to explore. Lei Xingfeng and the others asked a few Tao Lord Patriarchs to collect their food. It was just food and meat. As for water, there was ice and snow everywhere, so there was no need for the disciplinary camp to provide it. Lei Xingfeng found that the disciplinary camp gave out ample food. He said, "Strange, why is the disciplinary camp so generous? They're giving out so much food?" Jian Wei said, "He's about to die. Why aren't you giving him a full meal? This is the usual practice of the disciplinary camp. If you stay in the main camp of the Scarlet Continent, there will be very little food and water. You have to think of your own ways. There is no danger to your life in the main camp, so you just have to be careful. You can't do it here. Eating a full meal before death. Exine Phone was speechless. This disciplinary camp wasn't a place for humans to stay. 3 days later, the mission was issued. Lei Xingfeng's group was assigned to a small team. This small team had more than 2,000 people and was led by a mid-level Dao Lord. This mid-level Dao Lord was considered a tyrant in the disciplinary camp and had many subordinates. This time, he had more than 200 subordinates under him. Thus, he formed a small faction that was enough to control the others. Lei Xingfeng's group was the second largest faction in the team. Thus, this guy quickly found Lei Xingfeng. He knew what a restriction master meant to the entire team. Thus, he didn't act like a tyrant and sent someone to invite Lei Xingfeng. No one knew this mid-level Dao Lord's name. He only had a nickname, Big Eyes Boss. When Lei Xingfeng saw Big Eyes Boss, he found that this guy did indeed have a pair of big eyes. His eyes were as big as copper bells and gave off a fierce glint. He had a burly body like a giant bear. There were a few fierce lines on his face. He looked like a tough guy. Big Eyes Boss saw Lei Xingfeng and said, "You're that restriction master?" Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, "Yes." Big Eyes Boss looked at the Dao Lord patriarchs surrounding Lei Xingfeng and said, "It's a very simple condition. In the future, you'll listen to my orders." Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, "Sure. However, I won't listen to orders that will send me to my death." Big Eyes Boss stared and said, "What?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I won't listen to orders that will send me to my death. Don't you understand human language?" He wasn't afraid of this guy. A mid-level Dao Lord Patriarch was indeed very powerful. However, it wasn't like Lei Xingfeng hadn't killed a mid-level Dao Lord Patriarch before. In the Tail Spear Continent, he had killed a mid-level Dao Lord Patriarch, so he wasn't afraid of him. Big Eyes Boss knew that this guy's restrictions were very powerful. In fact, he didn't want to offend such a person. He stared at Lei Xingfeng for a long time. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to withstand it. However, Lei Xingfeng still looked at him indifferently without a trace of fear. Ha ha ha. Good, you're a man. I promise you, you don't have to do things that will send you to your death. Lei Xingfeng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He was also afraid of falling out with the other party. Although he wasn't afraid of the other party's strength, if two factions in a team fought each other, the consequences would be very serious. Big Eyes Boss said, "Very good. You're a restriction master. Of course, you don't have to rush to the front. As long as you can use the restrictions, we'll take care of the rest." He wasn't stupid. If he wanted to leave alive, he had to unite all the forces that could be united. Since Lei Xingfeng had agreed to listen to orders from the beginning, the only condition was that he didn't listen to orders that would send him to his death. Big Eyes Boss naturally wouldn't harp on this point. He didn't intend to send Lei Xingfeng to his death. Only an idiot would give a restriction master such a mission to charge. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "If that's the case, let's have a pleasant cooperation." He directly put himself in the position of cooperation. Big Eyes Boss didn't refute. He said, "From now on, you'll be the vice captain of our team. You can also command some people. Let's have a pleasant cooperation." This guy was very smart. After taking care of Lei Xingfeng, he had taken care of the most unstable group. As long as he oppressed the others, he would be able to control them. How could a single cultivator fight against two factions? Therefore, he quickly took care of the entire team. Among the 2,000 people, there were about 500 Dao Lord Patriarchs. The rest were Heaven Lord Realm cultivators. They couldn't do anything here. These Dao Lord Patriarchs were divided into 3 factions. One was Big Eyes Boss's faction. Another was Lei Xingfeng's guards. There were also those who didn't belong to any faction or those who belonged to a faction. They were very unlucky to be sent here. A group of scattered Dao Lord Patriarchs couldn't form a group. Therefore, they were directly controlled by Big Eyes Boss. Of course, there were also some smart fellows who temporarily joined Lei Xingfeng's group. This way, Lei Xingfeng had nearly 100 guards. As for the Heaven Monarch realm cultivators, they were more miserable. They were basically cannon fodder. It was extremely difficult for them to survive. Even if they wanted to ride on someone's coattails, they still needed someone to take them in. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly in his heart. If he wasn't a restriction master, he would be the lowest level of cannon fodder here. No one would care about his life or death. This was the status that came with strength and knowledge. A large group of people surrounded Lei Xingfeng. This was the protection of these Dao Lord Patriarchs. As long as Lei Xingfeng was fine, they would have a representative. They wouldn't be sent to their deaths easily. The premise was that they had to ensure that Lei Xingfeng was alive. Everyone knew this very well. Through a small continental teleportation gate, the team arrived at the edge of a ruin. There was already a camp here. This ruin was in the mountains. Lei Xingfeng came out of the teleportation gate and saw a faint house on the snow mountain in the distance. Upon closer inspection, the building was built on the cliff like a palace. There were huge stone pillars. The rooms were probably in the belly of the mountain. The palace-like building was extremely far away from Xian Feng's group. They could only vaguely see a few silhouettes. Due to the wind and snow, they couldn't see clearly. This ruin was extremely large. The entire mountainous area was basically covered in it. The place they came out from was only a few flat hills covered in white snow, stretching as far as the eye could see. The camp area here wasn't small. There were hundreds of wooden houses. When the big-eyed boss team came out, someone came to greet them. That person brought a large group of people. When the big-eyed boss saw that person, he couldn't help but laugh. He said, "It's actually Feng Hong. Haha, you're the first group to come in." Feng Hong was a very handsome middle-aged man. His expression was not good. He said, "Big Eye, why is it you?" The big-eyed boss said, "Why not me? Damn it, do you think I can hide? I'll die sooner or later. How about it? The situation here doesn't seem good." AI Chi whispered, "It seems like they're acquaintances." Jenny Wei said, "Nonsense. Of course they're acquaintances. Both of them are mid-level Dao Lord Patriarchs. They're famous people in the disciplinary camp." Bath said domineeringly, "Don't talk. Watch." The two of them immediately shut up. Feng Hong said, "Big Eye, we're in trouble this time. There are less than 1,000 people left in my team. You're not much better." The big-eyed boss looked up at the palace on the cliff in the distance and said, "How far are you? Are you close to that place?" As he spoke, he pointed at the palace on the cliff in the distance. Feng Hong sighed and said, "We can't pass it. It's just the periphery. I lost half of my people. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to call people over and use their lives to make up for it." The big-eyed boss said, "I'd rather fight on the battlefield than go to some ruin. We won't get the good things, but we could die first. Damn it, what bad luck." Feng Hong said, "It's still better than the Death Vanguard camp." The big-eyed boss said, "That's true. Almost no one can survive the Death Vanguard camp. At least a few dozen people can escape the disciplinary camp every year. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Let's go to the camp first." The group of people entered the camp in a mighty manner. Feng Hong said, "You have to build your own houses. I can only provide a small place to live here. They're all left behind by the dead. Don't mind." The big-eyed boss said as he walked, "Why would I mind? It's good enough to have a place to live. I'm not that particular." Chapter 669. Xian Feng, on the other hand, was secretly relieved. He was afraid that the two of them would fight before they even started exploring the ruins. That would be troublesome. The entire disciplinary camp was like a barrel of gunpowder. Everyone had a certain amount of anger, and if they didn't handle it well, no one would care if they killed someone. If they died, then they died. No one would care. Here, the bigger fist was the law. After entering the camp, the big-eyed boss said, "Go build your own wooden house. Brother Lei, follow me." Since everyone else called Lei Xingfeng Brother Lei, the big-eyed boss was too lazy to ask for Lei Xingfeng's name. He followed suit and called a Brother Lei. This made Lei Xingfeng a little embarrassed, but he did not refuse. When Feng Hong saw Lei Xingfeng, he was shocked and said, "Restriction Master! Since when did the headquarters send a Restriction Master to the discipline camp? That's too extravagant." Lei Xingfeng's uniform was that of a restriction master. Feng Heng was not a cultivator who did not know anything. He was also at the headquarters of the Ming-Zhe Alliance. Of course, he knew what this uniform meant. He was different from the Dao Lord Patriarchs of the lower sections. He knew how powerful a restriction master was. The big-eyed boss said, "How would I know? Brother Lei is my assistant. He has a group of guards under him." Feng Heng understood and said, "I'm willing to be a restriction master's guard. By the way, you just arrived, right?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Not long ago." Feng Heng said, "No wonder. A restriction master is more useful than our reputation. Let's go and have a seat at my place." Lei Xingfeng wanted to understand the situation. Of course, he would not refuse Feng Heng's invitation. Moreover, he also wanted to become friends with these experts. At the very least, he could not become enemies. Although the ruins were different from the battlefield, the dangerous place was even more terrifying than the battlefield. Without anyone around to support him, he would probably die mysteriously. He was also quite afraid. Soon, everyone arrived at Feng Heng's wooden house. This wooden house was similar to the others, but the room was slightly bigger. Lei Xingfeng's guards stayed outside, including Baspa and the others. Even if they were unhappy, there was nothing they could do. Feng Heng, the big-eyed boss, and a few other Daolord Patriarchs walked into the room. These Daolord Patriarchs were the minor leaders of the squad. There were still a few Heaven Monarchs in the room, and they seemed to be attendants. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was not only extravagant to have a Heaven Monarch as an attendant, but it was also irritating. In the secret sects, Heaven Monarchs were the absolute upper echelons, and Dao Monarchs were the true patriarchs. The so-called Dao Monarchs and Patriarchs here were just a title, and no one took them seriously. There were tables and chairs in the room. Everyone sat down. Feng Heng said, "There's plenty of food here. Let's eat." If they were in the Scarlet Continent, this food would be the best treatment. However, in this place, the punishment camp basically provided food. After all, the cultivators had to work hard, and there were no restrictions in this aspect. Of course, the food could be provided, but no one cared about the materials the cultivators needed. These cultivators couldn't upgrade their seals in the punishment camp because they lacked materials. If they couldn't upgrade their seals, then it would be hard for their cultivation to increase as well. The most troublesome thing for cultivators was that seals and cultivation were one, especially seals, which are the key to increasing a cultivator's level. Lei Xingfeng had never been hungry in the punishment camp. He could get a large amount of food from the mirror world, and he could even exchange food and water for materials. Of course, he wouldn't be interested in the food on the table. However, it was different for the others. Even the big-eyed boss ate poorly in the Scarlet Continent. He didn't have time to talk and just grabbed the food to eat. Feng Heng said, "No rush, eat slowly. Brother Lei, don't you want to eat?" Lei Xingfeng smiled. "I'm full." Feng Heng was slightly surprised. One must know that there were very few people who could eat well in the Scarlet Continent. Without a certain method, it was impossible. This person wasn't simple. Lei Xingfeng's attitude made him not dare to underestimate him. Soon, the big-eyed boss finished eating. He wiped his mouth and smiled. "You know what the main camp is like. It's hard to eat well." Feng Heng smiled. It's okay. We can eat our fill here." Xian Feng asked, "Can you explain the situation? We've just arrived and don't know anything. Since Boss Feng Heng came first, you should be familiar with the situation. Please explain." The big-eyed boss also said, "Yeah, Feng Heng, tell us. Do we have any hope of escaping this time?" He didn't care about the mission at all. He was only interested in whether or not he could survive. Feng Heng sighed and said, "I can see that this ruin is a complete ruin. It's really dangerous inside. This time, Brother Lei came, I have a bit of confidence. The restriction here is very powerful. Just the outer restriction alone is enough to kill a lot of cultivators. Right now, we can't even get to the periphery, let alone the dangers inside. Just the restriction killing formation on the periphery has already killed half of our people. We are at our wits' end. Fortunately, Brother Lei is here this time. Even if he can't break the restriction, he can at least tell us where it is easy to get in and where it is absolutely untouchable. We have to rely on people to fill in the restriction formation so that we can find the relative weak points. However, we often encounter very powerful restriction formations before we can get too far. It's so hard. I can't control the team anymore. When those cultivators hear that it's a mission to explore the restriction, they will try to resist. They all know that this is a suicide mission. The big-eyed boss was also dumbfounded. He said, "Such a powerful restriction?" Feng Hung said, "Yeah, it's much stronger than the most powerful restriction I've ever seen. It's like layers upon layers of restriction. If we're not careful, we'll kill a lot of people. Damn it, I'm tortured to death." Lei Xingfeng said, "I see. Yeah, take me to have a look first. I might need someone to help me trigger the restriction." Feng Hung said, "No problem. I'll bring some people with you." The big-eyed boss said, "I'll go and have a look too. What kind of restriction is so powerful?" Everyone got up and walked out of the room. Baspa and the others were waiting outside. When they saw Lei Xingfeng coming out, they hurried to greet him. Baspa asked, "How is it going?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go and see the restriction of the ruin first. I heard that it's very powerful. Many people who came first died in the restriction." Ever since Baspa saw Lei Xingfeng's thunder-killing array, he had a better understanding of the ruthlessness of restriction. He nodded and said, "Are we going now?" Lei Xingfeng said, "You guys come with me." His guards were all behind him. Hearing this, they followed him out of the camp. Flying close to the ground, they quickly passed through a slanted valley and saw a landscape that looked like a glacier. Not far away, they saw a ghastly blood-red color. Fresh blood flowed on the glacier's snowy ground. If there was a drag, it would be a large patch of red. There were also many small things that fell on the snowy ground. Those were the crushed parts of people. Lei Xingfeng saw a finger on the ground at a glance. He shook his head and said, "The front is covered with crushed corpses. I wonder how many people died." Indeed, there was a large pile of crushed flesh and bones in front. There was a layer of snow on top of it, but it could still be seen from the side. AI Chi's face was pale. He said, "So miserable." He was not afraid of dead people or crushed flesh and bones. What he was afraid of was that the dead people here had no choice at all. He was afraid that he would end up like this. Lei Xingfeng stood there with silver light flickering in his eyes. In an instant, his eyes were filled with restriction nodes. He could not help but exclaim, "Amazing." Feng Hung said, "This is an entry point. We have tested it many times. This is the weakest spot. Look to the right, there is a restriction killing array. It is very fierce and almost impossible to pass through. The left side is even weirder. At least we can see people dying in it. But on the left side, there is no one in it. Not even a shadow can be found. Only here in the middle can we rush in for a considerable distance." AI Chi said, "The middle is not good either. It is actually a trap." Feng Hung looked at AI Chi and said in surprise, "I didn't expect there to be a restriction master here." AI Chi said, "I am an advanced restriction master. I was just demoted and then sent to the disciplinary camp." No matter if it was an advanced restriction master or a restriction master, they were extremely rare talents here. If there was a restriction master in Feng Hung's team, so many people would not have died. Feng Hung said, "Big Eye, your team is full of talents." Big Eye said, "He is Brother Lei's subordinate, not mine. He has always been with Brother Lei." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes, we were sent to the disciplinary camp together. His name is AI Chi. He is a member of the Ming Zhe League's restriction main hall. He is also a restriction master like me." Feng Hung immediately became polite to AI Chi. He had no choice. Too many people had died under the restriction. He also had a psychological shadow of restriction masters. The restriction was too sharp to kill people. If a cultivator did not have a certain level, they could not resist it at all. Lei Xingfeng looked at the restriction nodes bit by bit. Soon, he found the node where the restriction hub was located. However, this node was hidden behind the restriction killing formation. He could not get close to it. After a long while, Lei Xingfeng carefully analyzed it several times and finally came to a conclusion. If he wanted to break the restriction, he had to get close to the restriction hub. At that time, he would have a way to break the restriction and even control it. This killing formation was actually not complicated. Lei Xingfeng relied on his rich knowledge of restriction. In addition, he could see the restriction nodes. This restriction was no secret to him. He said, "I need a volunteer to go in and touch the restriction." With this sentence, almost all of Feng Heng's subordinates took a step back and lowered their heads. They did not dare to look at Lei Xingfeng and Feng Heng at all. They were all pale with fear. Only the subordinates of Big Eye raised their heads disdainfully. In their eyes was restriction so terrible. Chapter 670. Feng Heng's face darkened. He said, "Big Eye Boss, I'm sorry. They've suffered enough. Why don't you send someone in?" Big Eye Boss did not think it was too serious. He said, "Who's willing to go?" "I'll go. Let me go." There were actually 2 Dao Lord Patriarchs fighting to go. The eyes of Feng Heng's subordinates were filled with a gloating light. This was the rhythm of seeking death. Big Eye Boss said, "All right, you go." He pointed at a random person. That person said, "All right, watch me." That person foolishly charged into the killing formation. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. In an instant, the 2 silver lights expanded and shrunk to more than a foot. At that moment, Lei Xingfeng completely saw the operation of the killing formation. He also learned the secret of this killing formation. It was slightly different from the restrictions he had learned, but it was more powerful and consumed less energy. "Come back," Lei Xingfeng shouted. There was something wrong with that Dao Lord Patriarch's brain. When he heard Lei Xingfeng's words, he continued to charge forward. Big Eye Boss also shouted, "Bastard, come back." However, this guy was charging too fast. If he had listened to Lei Xingfeng and retreated quickly, he could have saved his life. Of course, he would have suffered. However, he did not stop and continued to charge forward. Even Lei Xingfeng could not save him. Lei Xingfeng sighed and said, "He's really courting death." Then he saw the killing formation formed by the restriction. Blood spots burst out all over his body. Before he could scream, he exploded. Lei Xingfeng was shocked. Although he could break this restriction formation, he did not know what kind of killing formation it was. It could actually kill a Dao Lord Patriarch instantly. This was the first time he had seen this. This kind of power definitely made him drool. It was too powerful. Big Eye Boss kept cursing, "Bastard, idiot, why didn't he listen? Who did he think he was? A sovereign king expert? F***CK. This was his subordinate, so of course he was heartbroken. Although this guy was simple and straightforward, he was very willing to listen to his orders. Dying like this was really meaningless. Now, none of the big-eyed boss subordinates dared to make a sound. This was simply too terrifying. A Dao Lord Patriarch had silently and soundlessly exploded into a bloody mist. Who wouldn't be afraid of that? Feng Heng's subordinates heaved a sigh of relief. As long as they weren't the ones going, they didn't care who was going to die. Lei Xingfeng closed his eyes and pondered. No one around him dared to speak. They all stared at Lei Xingfeng. After a while, Lei Xingfeng breathed a sigh of relief and said, "If we follow my plan, this seal can be broken." Feng Heng couldn't help but be overjoyed. He was almost driven crazy by this restriction. He could only watch helplessly as groups of his subordinates were sent to their deaths. He still couldn't find a way. This restriction was too abnormal. It wasn't something they could solve. According to his thoughts, if this restriction was forcefully broken, it would be impossible without a monarch rank expert. "Tell me, I'll think of a way to do it. Even if we lose a few hundred people, I won't hesitate." His mission was to break the restriction on the outer edge of the ruins, and the time limit for the mission was almost up. If he couldn't clear the restriction by then, he would have to do it himself. Unless he died in the restriction, he wouldn't be able to turn back. This gave him an extremely heavy pressure. Hearing that Lei Xingfeng could break this restriction, he didn't care no matter what the conditions were. As long as the dead didn't die on his head, it was fine. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, give me 100 Dao Lord Patriarchs. I'll assign the tasks." Feng Heng looked at the big-eyed boss and said, "I've lost too many people here. I'll give 50 people. You give 50 people." The big-eyed boss said straightforwardly, "No problem." Soon, 100 Downlord patriarchs stood in front of Lei Xingfeng. It could be seen that all of them didn't look good. They had seen the Downlord patriarch die just now. If they went in, it would be a big problem whether they could come out alive. Lei Xingfeng saw everyone's expressions. He walked in front of the 100 Downlord patriarchs and smiled. Don't be so nervous. I'm not asking you to die. As soon as he said this, everyone's expressions relaxed. As long as they didn't die, everything was fine. Lei Xingfeng took out a wooden stick and drew a diagram on the snow. He said, everyone 1 point. You have to reach the restriction at the same time. This time, no more than 10 seconds. As he spoke, he looked back at the restriction, looking for the nodes of the restriction. The 100 Downlord patriarchs looked at the complicated diagram with troubled expressions. This was because the points on the diagram were very complicated. Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, how about this? We'll arrange this diagram outside the restriction. Each person will occupy a point. When I give the order, everyone will move at the same time. We'll try to succeed in one go. Everyone agreed. Feng Heng, Big Eye, and the others watched. They didn't know what Lei Xingfeng was planning. However, they wouldn't interfere at all. They would only support Lei Xingfeng. Anyone who dared to disobey would die. Soon, 100 people were arranged. Lei Xingfeng was constantly adjusting. In Feng Heng's eyes, the 100 people stood in a mess and occupied a large area of snow. Lei Xingfeng made them move a few times. At first, it was a mess. Under Lei Xingfeng's command, they were arranged in a way and moved at the same time. When they reached the destination, they were still in their original positions. Lei Xingfeng said, don't be afraid of trouble. If it's troublesome now, you'll be able to save your life later. If anyone can't do it, retreat immediately. Don't enter the restriction. If you can't do it, you'll implicate others. The 100 Downlord patriarchs were all very serious. This was a matter of life and death. No one dared to play around. Even the most restless Downlord was very serious. After running back and forth a few times, Lei Xingfeng was very satisfied. He said, now, according to this position, everyone will move to the edge of the restriction. We'll try to succeed in one go. Also, the most important thing is that if I give the order to retreat, you have to retreat as quickly as possible. If I give the order to retreat and you continue to stand there, don't blame me if you die. Everyone agreed loudly. With the death of the Downlord last time, no one thought that Lei Xingfeng was talking nonsense. Lei Xingfeng said, once you reach the position, you have to stop when I give the order. The next step is for you to attack. Attack the air in front of you. Use the attack you're best at. Someone asked, attack the air? Lei Xingfeng said, that's the restriction node. You can't see it. Just listen to my orders. Yes. Lei Xingfeng asked, any other questions? If you have any, ask me. Someone said, what will happen if we can't hit the restriction node? Xan Feng spoke indifferently. The restriction will completely activate. It'll be hard for you to escape, so you have to take up a good position. Luckily, I'm watching over you. Other than that, there's only 10 seconds. That's the transition time for the restriction to activate. After 10 seconds, even if you attack, it'll be hard to do anything. The retreat I'm talking about is if someone can't hit the node of the restriction. If I tell you to retreat and you can quickly retreat, then this restriction won't be able to harm you. Understood? Understood. Feng Heng and Big, I felt a chill in their hearts. If Lei Xingfeng hadn't come, how many of them would have died? Lei Xingfeng said, okay, listen to my orders. Run. The 100 people arranged themselves according to their positions and rushed forward almost at the same time. Lei Xingfeng calculated silently. In a few seconds, the 100 Downlord patriarchs arrived at their destination. Lei Xingfeng shouted, stop. The 100 Downlord patriarchs immediately stopped. Lei Xingfeng shouted, take 2 steps forward. Attack. Immediately, the entire restriction formation began to activate. Just as the restriction was operating quickly, the 100 restriction nodes were attacked. In an instant, the entire formation was slowed down and interrupted. The restriction formation's power was hindered by the 100 nodes, and the entire formation's power dropped rapidly. Even if there were restrictions attacking, they couldn't hurt the 100 Downlord patriarchs at all. Lei Xingfeng continued to shout, "Keep attacking. Don't stop, don't stop." Feng Hung stared blankly and said, "That works too? Sigh, my poor subordinates." As Lei Xingfeng shouted, he dashed out and ran into the depths of the restriction. The others watched in shock as Lei Xingfeng went in. Feng Hung was even more surprised. In just a few seconds, Lei Xingfeng had become a small black dot and disappeared far away. Lei Xingfeng's voice came from afar. "Keep attacking." The 100 Dao Lord Patriarchs attacked with all their might. Although they couldn't see anything, they could feel that the restriction wasn't exerting its power. Even if there was a rebound, they could withstand it. Lei Xingfeng quickly reached the restriction's core. It was a snowy area. Lei Xingfeng reached out and grabbed. A huge illusory hand appeared out of thin air and grabbed the snow. With a grab, large chunks of snow and soil were lifted. In just a few seconds, Lei Xingfeng dug out the restriction's core. It was a 1-meter square metal box. He instantly put it into his hidden Luin space. The entire ground began to shake. Without the restriction's core, the restriction formation couldn't be maintained at all. It was like a car that suddenly lost its engine. No matter how advanced the car was, it couldn't be driven. The entire restriction had lost the restriction's core and stopped operating completely. Lei Xingfeng watched as the restriction nodes disappeared completely. The 100 Dao Lord Patriarchs were still attacking with all their might. He shouted, "Stop attacking! Stop!" Lei Xingfeng's voice was like thunder. He had used a lightning technique. After all, he had run far away. When his voice reached the 100 Dao Lord Patriarchs, they all heard it. Of course, they all had different reactions. They all stopped attacking. Everyone understood this and stopped attacking. However, some of them turned and ran as fast as lightning. The others were only stunned for a moment before running away. Chapter 671. Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He slowly walked back. The 100 Dao Lord Patriarchs fled back to the edge of the restriction. Seeing Lei Xingfeng walk back, their faces burned. They were too ashamed to face anyone. Feng Hung stepped forward and asked, "How was it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "How else? The restriction is broken." Feng Hung laughed, "Ha ha ha. Brother Lei, you're amazing. Ha ha. This is King awesome. We finally broke the restriction." Big Eyes said, "How could it be so easy?" Lei Xingfeng said, "How hard did it have to be for you to get what you want? This is already not easy. Fortunately, this restriction can still be broken. If there were two, it would be a compound restriction. It wouldn't be so easy to break it. After all, this is the periphery." Feng Hung said, "Breaking this restriction is half of my mission." "Haha, okay, let's go back to the camp first." Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm going to stay here and take care of something. Baspa, take some people and follow me." Feng Hung said, "We'll wait for you at the camp." As for Xian Feng, he placed great importance on him. As a restriction master, he would be of great help to him. Big Eyes also understood that Lei Xingfeng's role was not something a Dao Lord Patriarch could compare to. With him around, the restriction's lethality was reduced to the minimum. He said, "Brother Lei, do you need my help?" Lei Xingfeng said, "No, I'm just dealing with the restriction here." Big Eyes said, "Okay, we'll wait for you at the camp." Lei Xingfeng's contribution to breaking the restriction this time was the greatest. Everyone admitted this. Moreover, with this, his status in the team had been greatly improved. Feng Hung and Big Eyes led people to the camp. After they left, Lei Xingfeng said, "I need everyone's help." Ai Chi said, "No problem. Just give us the order." He now completely understood that if he relied on Lei Xingfeng, he would have the hope of getting out alive. No matter what, he had to cling on to this thick thigh. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll make the markings and you guys dig. I need the restriction components here." Ai Chi immediately understood and said, "Okay, I will be the assistant." He was not someone who did not know anything. He was also a restriction master of the Ming-Zhe Alliance. Lei Xingfeng was followed by a group of people. They were all his bodyguards, or rather, temporary bodyguards. "Bathaba ass town," Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll make a mark on the snow. You guys dig down and find the restriction components." Bath said, domineeringly. That's easy. We'll just follow you. If you mark one, we'll dig one. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Come, follow me." As he walked, he threw snowballs and said, "This one." After a few steps, he threw out another snowball and said, "There's one here too." After throwing out a snowball, someone immediately went forward to dig. Lei Xingfeng only cared about marking and walking forward. The people behind him kept digging. After digging out the restriction components, they quickly followed and continued to dig. This restriction was very big, and the entire restriction array was very complicated. Lei Xingfeng marked and recorded the location of the restriction components in the star Python record. He knew how to crack this restriction array because he could see the entire restriction node and deduce the location of the restriction components. This heaven-defying skill was even crazier than a restriction grandmaster. Aichi knew how difficult it was. He followed Lei Xingfeng and was very shocked. He said, "You deduced this?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Of course. Right, there's one more here." Aichi smiled bitterly and said, "This is too powerful. I know that no one in the restriction main hall has this ability." The result of forcibly breaking the restriction array was the collapse of the restriction components. When the restriction components collapsed to a certain number, the entire restriction array would completely collapse. At this time, it was basically impossible to find the restriction components. Lei Xingfeng's method was terrifying to the extreme. He could break the restriction and obtain the complete restriction array. He just had to rearrange it. This was too frightening. Obtaining the complete ancient restriction array was Lei Xingfeng's goal. He had this idea from the start. It was mainly because of this restriction array. He controlled the restriction core immediately. This way, he didn't destroy the integrity of the restriction array. After he obtained it, he could restore the restriction array and learn it. As long as he had time to slowly study it, he could refine the restriction array himself in the future. This restriction area was very large. With a group of subordinates, Lei Xingfeng spent a few hours to collect all the restriction components. These restriction components had been through countless years, but they were still as bright as new. After marking them one by one and putting them into the hidden Luin space, Lei Xingfeng was very satisfied. He had just arrived and obtained a complete restriction array. This restriction array's power was very shocking. There were a total of over 1,000 restriction components in a restriction core. Lei Xingfeng didn't know what treasures were in the restriction core, but he didn't have time to check. Normally, the stronger the restriction, other than the restriction design, the treasures and energy source in the restriction core. The higher the level of the restriction, the higher the treasures in the restriction core. Lei Xingfeng was very clear about this. This was why he spent so much effort to obtain the complete restriction core. The restriction core of any restriction was a treasure. Lei Xingfeng was very concerned about this. Obtaining the restriction core was equivalent to obtaining half of the restriction. After obtaining all the components and core of a large-scale restriction, Xi and Feng felt great. He brought a group of people to the camp and quickly arrived at Feng Heng's place. Lei Xingfeng turned around and said, "Old Seven, take them to build the wooden houses. We don't have a place to stay yet." Aichi said, "They already gave us some wooden houses. We're still lacking some. Okay, let's go build the houses." He left behind a dozen Dao Lord ancestors. These people were to protect Lei Xingfeng. The others followed to build the houses. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a place to stay. Lei Xingfeng came to Feng Heng's residence. A few Dao Lord ancestors bowed respectfully and invited him into the room. They had seen Lei Xingfeng's methods and knew that Lei Xingfeng was an extremely powerful restriction master. They respected and feared him. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He had always been good to people who were good to him. There was a circle of people sitting in the room. Feng Heng, Big Eye, and Boss were all there. When they saw Lei Xingfeng enter, they immediately stood up and let Lei Xingfeng sit between them. Lei Xingfeng didn't refuse. There was no need to be humble here. He sat down and said, "The restriction is solved. What's the next step?" Feng Heng said, "I just came back. The order was given. Fortunately, Brother Lei helped to solve the restriction. Otherwise, we would be in big trouble." Lei Xingfeng asked, "What order?" Feng Heng said, "They gave us 10 days to break the restriction at the edge. If we can't do it, everyone will charge." Xian Feng felt a chill in his heart. He had a deep understanding of how to break restrictions. The might of this thing was something he had never imagined. Relying on numbers to break this restriction was almost impossible. If they were to charge with all of them, there would only be one result. They would all die in the restriction. No one would be able to escape. However, if they were to charge with all of them, Xian Feng was clear that a large portion of the restriction components would collapse. Even the ancient restriction couldn't withstand the charge of 3,000 people. It would consume a lot of energy. Lei Xingfeng guessed that either the restriction components or the restriction core had problems. However, before the problem occurred, most of the people who charged into the restriction array would die. This was the method of using their lives to break the restriction array. No one would be reluctant to let the prisoners of the punishment camp die. Whether it was the punishment camp or the death vanguard camp, death was the most common thing. For some cultivators, truly dying was a release. Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "Our lives are worthless. Boss Feng Heng, we can report it 1 day before the deadline. This way, we will have 8 to 9 days of rest. We don't have to work so hard for the time being." Feng Heng nodded and said, "I know." However, the headquarters of the Ming-Zhe Alliance will send people over. Yes, to supervise. There should be an elder from the headquarters. Look at how serious they are. Is it necessary to send a monarch rank master to supervise? He laughed helplessly. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "No matter who comes, as long as we complete the mission, they can't make things difficult for us." Everyone agreed. If they didn't complete the mission, they wouldn't have a good time. However, if they completed the mission, they wouldn't be afraid. After discussing for a while, Lei Xingfeng left. He didn't have to build his own house. Boss Feng Heng directly prepared a ready-made wooden house for him to live in. When he returned to his own wooden house, Ai Chi, Baspa, Grandpa Ma, and Jianyi Wei followed him in. The few of them sat down. Grandpa Ma asked, "How was it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We can rest for a few days. Because the restriction was broken, our mission is considered to be completed temporarily. Soon, the headquarters will send an elder to supervise and inspect. If we didn't break the restriction this time, we would be forced to charge." Grandpa Ma opened his mouth wide and said, "Charge? Are they looking for death?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "That's right. They are looking for death. Everyone is looking for death." Baspa sighed and said, "How cruel. Why didn't we know the headquarters were so perverted?" Jianyi Wei said, "The headquarters have always been cruel, especially to the sects below. You guys just haven't come into contact with them." Ai Chi said, "I hope we can return as soon as possible. Sai, we can't stay in the disciplinary camp. If we stay for too long, we'll be played to death." Lei Xingfeng said, "Bear with it for now. There are less than 2 years left. If we persevere, we can return to the headquarters of the Ming-Zhe Alliance." Baspa asked, "Since we completed the mission, can we go back?" Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh and said, "Dream on." Chapter 672. Bathaba immediately gave up. Since Lei Xingfeng said that he was dreaming, it meant that there was no way they could go back. Bathaba guessed that they would not leave until more than half of the discipline camp were dead. This was the pace of a great purge. There were too many people in the discipline camp recently, so they had to eliminate some of them. Lei Xingfeng said, "I hope that everyone can be more careful here. Try not to cause trouble and keep a low profile. It's best if we don't attract attention. We might end up as cannon fodder here." The few of them nodded solemnly. Indeed, if they weren't careful, they could die. That Dao monarch old ancestor who jumped out of the restriction was killed without a sound. If he had stayed silent or listened to Lei Xingfeng's orders, he would have been able to keep his life. But in the end, he died without a complete corpse. Lei Xingfeng said, "Everyone, go back and rest. Don't look for me if there's nothing important. I want to sleep." After chasing the 4 of them out of the room, Lei Xingfeng closed the door and returned to the mirror realm. Wu Yang and the others were waiting in Lei Xingfeng's courtyard. When they saw Lei Xingfeng return, They immediately went up and asked, "How was it? Was it dangerous?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It was very dangerous. This is a complete ancient ruin. I think there are many good things. It depends on whether we have the ability to enter." Wu Yang reacted quickly and said, "Is it different from the Forbidden Lands?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes, it is different from the Forbidden Lands. The Forbidden Lands had a planned retreat, so the good things left behind were limited. However, this ruin is different. It is the ruin of an extinct race. There should be many things preserved inside. As long as we can enter, it will be a huge treasure." Wu Yang said, "Do we have a chance to sneak in?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "I don't want to lose people from the secret sect. It is too dangerous inside. It is not something that we can defend against." Gao Yi said, "Is it that powerful?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Just the first team has already lost half of their men. About 1,000 men have died. Among these 1,000 men, the weakest was a heaven monarch. Do you think we can send anyone over?" Gao Yi was immediately dumbfounded. "Over 1,000? They are at least heaven monarch realm cultivators. This is much stronger than our secret sect." Lei Xingfeng said, "Now, just our camp alone has more than 3,000 people. The weakest is also at the heaven monarch realm, and the leader is a mid-level Dao Lord. Soon, the elders from the headquarters will come. The elders from the headquarters of the Mingzhe Alliance are at least at the monarch realm. Isn't that strong? Even so, it's still not enough to break into the ruins." Everyone exclaimed. This was too terrifying. With this kind of strength, they couldn't even enter the ruins. This was much stronger than the Forbidden Lands. If it was the Forbidden Lands, with this kind of strength, they could basically sweep through the Forbidden Lands. They could even break the restrictions of the Forbidden Lands. There was no comparison at all. One had to know that the disciplinary camp was just an organization that imprisoned prisoners. Just this one subordinate organization had more prisoners than all the cultivators from the secret sect combined. As for the levels, they couldn't even be compared. The difference was too great. Lei Xingfeng said, "This time, I will leave behind the materials that I exchanged. As for the food and water, there is no need to continue preparing them." He needed to empty his hidden lens space. Who knew what treasures were in the ruins? If there was no space in his hidden ruin space, if he found a large number of valuable items, there would be no space to store them. This time, he came back to empty his hidden ruin space. After quickly emptying the materials he exchanged, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to stay for long. After bidding farewell to Wu Yang and the others, he immediately returned to the encampment room. Only then did Xian Feng take out a thick fur cushion and lay down to sleep. Although breaking the restrictions seemed easy, it actually took a lot of effort, causing him to be very tired. After sleeping for a day, Lei Xingfeng was shaken awake. Ai Qi said, "Someone is looking for you. Get up." Lei Xingfeng sat up unhappily and said, "Who is looking for me?" Ai Qi said, "Boss Feng and Boss Big are looking for you." Lei Xingfeng got up helplessly and stretched. He said, "Sleepy, still want to sleep." Ai Qi said, "Don't sleep. They've already urged you twice. Go. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "Okay, don't rush me. I'll go now." After washing up, Lei Xingfeng walked out of the room and walked towards Feng Heng's residence with a dozen Dao Lord Patriarchs. There were many people sitting in Feng Heng's small living room. One of them was sitting in the middle. When he saw Lei Xingfeng come in, he said, "This is the restriction master you were talking about?" Lei Xingfeng walked up and said, "Greetings, Elder." Feng Heng smiled and said, "Brother Lei is still the best." You recognized Elder at a glance. "Let me introduce you. This is Elder Qing Mu from the headquarters." Qing Mu smiled and said, "Not bad. No wonder my Qing Yin praised you." Lei Xingfeng was happy and said, "Elder knows Lord Qing Yin?" Qing Mu laughed and said, "More than that. He's my younger brother." Ha! Lei Xingfeng was even happier. Finally, he knew someone from the upper echelons. He said, "Greetings, Lord Qing Mu." He bowed again. Qing Mu smiled and waved his hand. He said, "We're all family. Don't be so polite. Come, sit down." Feng Heng was also surprised. He did not expect the new elder to have a relationship with Lei Xingfeng. It was normal. Lei Xingfeng came from the headquarters. It was not strange that he knew someone. The big-eyed boss was the same. His heart relaxed a little. The concept of acquaintances and strangers were completely different. If the elders deliberately made things difficult for some missions, the subordinates would suffer. If they relaxed a little, or even secretly helped, many things would be easy to solve. Qing Mu said, "This mission, Brother Lei doesn't know yet." When he called to Brother Lei, Lei Xingfeng was speechless. Qing Mu was a Monarch Realm expert. How would he call Brother Lei? He said, "Just call me a phone." "What mission is this?" Qing Mu said, "According to the headquarters, there are 3 layers of seals in this relic. You only need to break the first 2 layers. The last layer will be broken by the experts from the seal hall." Lei Xingfeng understood immediately. He was worried about the people from the disciplinary camp. Once the last layer was broken, the treasures would come out. At that time, the people from the disciplinary camp would not ignore it. They would take all the treasures. Once it entered the hidden Lun space, even if they killed him, they would not be able to get it. Besides, the last layer could not be broken by numbers. It could not be broken by people's lives. Therefore, it had to be broken by a seal master. Qing Mu continued, "You were lucky this time. Brother Lei was there to help you break the first layer of inhibition. According to his ability, it shouldn't be a problem for him to break the second layer of inhibition. Therefore, you all saved your lives. You are really lucky to have an inhibition master. However, there is one more thing to remind everyone. Once the second layer is broken, you will often face many puppets. You have to be careful. This was the benefit of being familiar with people. He could warn them of the dangers in advance." Feng Heng said casually, "Puppets? Do they have any fighting power?" Qing Mu said, "I'm not trying to scare you. The puppets here are very powerful. Most importantly, the number of puppets here is a little scary. They're not weak either. Even if you have more people, you have to be careful. As far as I know, the other teams lost many people because of carelessness." Feng Heng and Big Eye's expressions became serious. Feng Heng said, "Thank you for your reminder, Elder. Being prepared and not being prepared were 2 different concepts. With preparation, the loss could be reduced." He said, "I will organize well. Once the second layer is broken, we will form a good defense." Qing Mu nodded and said, "You will stay here for a long time as the outer defense force. Soon, the headquarters will send many people to take over your work. The premise is that you have to break the second layer. In addition, you have to rebuild the camp. This camp will be left to the people from the headquarters." Hearing this, everyone's face turned pale. Qing Mu said, "Don't frown. Someone will send the materials. It will just take some time." Feng Heng and Big Eye could not resist, so they could only agree. Big Eye asked, "Elder Qing, where is the new camp?" Qing Mu took out a page of the Star Python record. It was a topographic map. He pointed at a place and said, "Here will do." Feng Heng and Big Eye took a closer look, and Feng Heng said, "Why are they so far away?" Qing Mu said, "Yes." Lei Xingfeng took the Star Python record and looked carefully. He was not looking at a camp. It was meaningless to him. He looked at the entire topographic map. After looking at it for 15 minutes, he closed his eyes and meditated. To be precise, he closed his eyes and memorized it. He compared again and then returned the Star Python record to Qing Mu. In this short 15 minutes, he memorized the entire relic in his mind. He would record it in his Star Python record as soon as he went back. With Qing Mu's help, Xi and Feng obtained a map of the entire ruins. Of course, it was only a map of the outer area of the ruins, without a map of the inner area. However, with this map, Xi and Feng knew the area of the ruins as well as the surrounding terrain. For others, this map was useless. But for Lei Xingfeng, it was very useful. He wanted to steal something good from the relic. This map was very important. Qing Mu said, "Let's explore the second layer tomorrow. Feng Heng, you have to take some people with you. A few hundred people. They don't have to be powerful experts. Ordinary cultivators will do." The so-called ordinary cultivators were also at the Heavenly Lord level. They were the true cannon fodder here. The Tao Lord Patriarchs were treated slightly better in battle. Of course, the Tao Lord Patriarchs were also cannon fodder. The only difference was that the Tao Lord Patriarchs were much better at protecting themselves. Feng Heng nodded and said, "No problem. I will take 300 people." Big Eye said, "Okay, I will take 300 people too." Chapter 673. Mu nodded and said, 600 people are enough. Brother Lei, you're the main character tomorrow. Everyone has to listen to your orders. Lei Xingfeng had already established his reputation as a restriction master. No one could compare with him in terms of breaking restrictions. "No problem. I'll come tomorrow." Lei Xingfeng was very interested in the restrictions here. Even if he couldn't get the components and core of the restrictions, he still wanted to go because it was an excellent learning opportunity. As time passed, Lei Xingfeng became more and more interested in restrictions. With this, he believed that he could do well in the Mingzhe alliance. The next day, Lei Xingfeng led a group of subordinates to the gathering point of the camp. Feng Heng and the big-eyed boss each led their own subordinates, while Greenwood led a large group of people as well. Behind him were more than 100 Downlord Patriarchs, with 6 or 7 mid-level Downlord Patriarchs and 1 high-level Downlord Patriarch. Lei Xingfeng was the last to arrive. Qingmu nodded and said to Feng Heng, "Okay, everyone is here. Let's go." The group began to walk towards the ruins, and as they walked, they quickly passed by the first layer of restrictions. After Exan Feng broke this restriction, the snowy ground was already very safe, and after passing through this area, the group arrived at the border of the second layer of restrictions. Lei Xingfeng could clearly see the dense restriction nodes. He shouted, "Stop! We're at the edge of the restriction." Other cultivators couldn't see the restriction nodes, so they didn't know that they were at the edge of the restriction. If Lei Xingfeng wasn't here, they would have to send people in. They wouldn't know the range of the restriction until they triggered it. Everyone stopped. Feng Heng said, "There's a restriction here." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's right. This is the edge of the restriction. If we continue to walk forward, we'll trigger the restriction." Although Qing Mu had a younger brother who was a restriction master, his understanding of restrictions was similar to that of ordinary cultivators. He was also someone who didn't know about restrictions. Nearly 1,000 people stood at the edge of the restriction. Qing Mu said, "What should we do?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Wait a moment. I'll observe for a while." Qing Mu took his men and stepped back a little. He said, "It's okay. We don't need to break the restriction formation immediately. You have enough time to observe." Lei Xingfeng walked along the edge of the restriction. This restriction was much bigger, at least 3 or 4 times bigger than the previous restriction. Just walking along the edge of the restriction took Lei Xingfeng more than 2 hours. He was looking for the core of the restriction, but after walking along the edge once, Lei Xingfeng still couldn't find the core. He couldn't help but feel anxious. If he couldn't find the core, then it would be extremely difficult to break this restriction. After returning to the crowd, Aoki asked, "How is it?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "This restriction formation is too complicated. I can't figure it out for the time being. Maybe we need someone to go in and trigger the restriction formation." If the restriction formation was not triggered, it would be static. Once it was triggered, it would become dynamic. Some secrets could only be truly understood when it was dynamic. In other words, Lei Xingfeng needed to see how the restriction formation worked. Maybe he could find the core of the restriction formation. Because Qing Mu had a relationship with Lei Xingfeng, he didn't use high-handed means to command. Instead, he used Lei Xingfeng's identity as a restriction master to point out the tasks that needed to be done. Qing Mu looked at Feng Heng and said, "You can choose your own people. I won't say anything." Feng Heng and Big Eye were relieved. If Qing Mu was the commander, once he gave the order, nothing could be changed. If something happened, such as sending some of their trusted people to test the restriction formation, they wouldn't be able to stop it. Now that the task had fallen into their hands, they could choose the people to test the restriction formation. The two of them each selected dozens of people and brought them to Lei Xingfeng. Feng Heng said, "Brother Lei, you'll be the commander. These people will be yours. Don't worry, they won't dare to disobey." The selected cultivators all had ashen faces. This was a suicide mission. If they refused the mission, they would be killed immediately. In the disciplinary camp, there was no room for negotiation. Lei Xingfeng glanced at them and said, "I need 10 people for the first batch." Soon, 10 people were recommended. They were really recommended. They were recommended by punches and kicks. Lei Xingfeng called the 10 people to his side and said, "This isn't a life or death test. I need you to follow my orders strictly. If you can follow my orders strictly, you have at least a 50% chance of coming back alive. Of course, if you don't follow my orders, then there's almost no chance of survival." The 10 cultivators originally thought that they were going to die. They didn't expect that there was still a 50% chance of survival. Suddenly, there was hope in everyone's eyes. Lei Xingfeng divided them into groups of 2 and divided them into several directions. He repeatedly gave instructions and said, "The first group, go in from here. The second group, wait for my orders. Now go forward." The 2 Heaven Monarch Realm cultivators walked incautiously. Lei Xingfeng opened his eyes wide and carefully observed the changes of the restriction formation. He kept shouting, "Go a few steps to the left. Yes. Go a few more steps. Good. Turn around and go to the right." The 2 followed his instructions and went forward. Lei Xingfeng stared at the changes of the restriction formation. As they went deeper into the restriction formation, a portion of the restriction formation started to fluctuate. Lei Xingfeng could clearly see the movement of the nodes. As there were only 2 people, even if the restriction formation was activated, the power wouldn't be too strong. However, it was enough for Lei Xingfeng to see a portion of the changes. However, this small change wasn't enough to determine the location of the core of the restriction formation. Lei Xingfeng still had to let the 2 of them go forward. Following Lei Xingfeng's instructions, the 2 of them walked left and right in the restriction formation. This path was very particular. Others might not know, but AI Chi knew. The path that Lei Xingfeng instructed the 2 of them to walk basically didn't trigger the restriction formation. Although the restriction formation was triggered, it wasn't enough to cause an intense reaction. This level was simply frightening. Countless nodes swayed in front of Lei Xingfeng's eyes. He needed to capture the movement of these nodes and then let the 2 of them carefully avoid triggering the nodes. However, it was impossible to completely avoid triggering the nodes. He could only try to minimize the contact between the nodes. This way, he could suppress the full outbreak of the restriction formation. After more than 2 hours, the 2 of them walked out about 400 meters safely. They became 2 small black dots in the eyes of everyone. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "All right, sprint back with all your strength. Listen to my command. 1, 2, 3, run back." The 2 of them were like horses that were whipped. They sprinted back frantically. A Heaven Monarch Realm expert sprinted with all his strength and rushed back in a few seconds. In an instant, the entire formation started to operate at full power. However, the 2 of them were extremely fast. Before the restriction formation could catch them, the 2 of them had already dashed out of the formation. Lei Xingfeng took this opportunity to find the core of the restriction formation. After a moment, the restriction formation gradually stopped operating. Lei Xingfeng covered his face with both hands and closed his eyes. Just now, he had poured all the lightning into his eyes. This kind of piercing pain was hard to avoid. Qing Mu asked, "Brother Lei, how is it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I still need to test it. I can't find a key point." Qing Mu said, "Do you want to rest for a while? There's enough time. There's no need to rush." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "All right, let's rest for a while." The 2 Heaven Monarch Realm cultivators' faces were full of joy. They felt like they had a new lease on life. It was too scary. If they didn't listen to Lei Xingfeng's command, they believed that they would have died in the restriction formation. However, with the 2 of them returning victorious, the confidence of the other 4 groups increased. They realized that Xi and Feng didn't plan on sending them to their deaths, and everyone was secretly thankful. One must know that dying was a matter of turns. This time their mission was to die, and since they didn't die, then the next mission wouldn't fall on them. Lei Xingfeng covered his face and closed his eyes. After more than 10 minutes, He rubbed his face hard and opened his eyes. He said, "Next group, let's go this way." He led the group and ran forward. Soon, they arrived at the entrance. He said, "Go in from here. It's the same old rules. Do you understand?" The two people in the second group nodded continuously. It was hard to forget, even if they wanted to. This was to save their lives. Moreover, this rule was very simple. They just had to listen to Lei Xingfeng's command. They would go and stop when he told them to. It was such a simple thing. As long as they followed his command, they could save their lives. Who wouldn't remember? Lei Xingfeng said, "Very good. Listen to my command. Walk forward slowly. Try to be as slow as possible. Walk one step at a time." The two trembled as they listened to the command. Lei Xingfeng already had experience. Therefore, he ordered for every step, one step to the left. Second step, turn right and take 2 steps forward. Okay, stop. Take a step back. 1 step to the right. Here, Xi and Feng could see even more clearly. The various restriction nodes started to change as the two of them moved forward. Xi and Feng continued to speculate. According to his estimations, he would be able to understand the restrictions of this area very quickly. The only thing that made him depressed was that he couldn't find the center of the restriction. Gradually, the two of them had reached a distance of 400 meters, but it wasn't just 400 meters, they had walked at least 1,000 meters. The two of them were already drenched in sweat as they listened attentively to Xi and Feng's instructions, afraid that they would mishear a single sentence. If they misheard a command here, there would be no other consequences. They would be killed immediately by the restriction. The two of them walked forward in fear. Lei Xingfeng said, "Stop for now. Stand still." With the two of them, although they didn't trigger the restriction, they still affected the operation of the restriction. This was Lei Xingfeng's opportunity to observe the restriction. This restriction was too big. Lei Xingfeng had already figured out that this was a complex, large-scale restriction. This was the first time he had seen such a complicated restriction. He felt a little helpless. It was too complicated. It was far from enough to rely on just the two of them to investigate. Chapter 674. Lei Xingfeng didn't allow the two Heaven Monarch Realm cultivators to continue forward. This was almost the limit of the restriction. If they went any further, he wouldn't have the confidence to command them. Firstly, the distance was too far, and it was hard to control the movement of the nodes. Secondly, the restriction had reached a critical state. No matter how careful they were, they wouldn't be able to stop the explosion of the restriction. Prepare to turn back and run. Listen to my command. 1, 2, 3. Run back. Quick. The two cultivators finally received the order to return. Just now, they had seen the result of running back. As long as they were fast enough, they would be able to save their lives. The two of them really used all their strength and ran back madly without caring about anything else. When the two of them rushed out of the restriction behind them had already started to explode. However, without the target of the attack, the exploding restriction was useless. Seeing the restriction exploding and spreading rapidly, and seeing the two of them running like rabbits, Lei Xingfeng was only concerned about the changes of the restriction. As for the two of them running, he didn't care. He knew that as long as they ran fast, they would be able to get out of danger. Staring at the nodes of the restriction moving quickly, Lei Xingfeng enjoyed watching this process. As his understanding of the restriction deepened, so did his understanding of it. He could even determine what the reaction of the restriction was. Relying on the two of them to probe, he had a deeper understanding of this restriction. However, it was still far from enough. He still needed someone to touch and explore. Only when he completely understood this restriction, even if he couldn't find the restriction hub, he would be able to determine the location of the restriction hub. The two of them ran out with pale faces and panted heavily. In fact, even if they ran with all their might, they wouldn't feel tired at all. It was mainly because they were too nervous, which caused them to feel extremely tired. After inhaling the bone-chilling cold air into their lungs, the two of them gradually recovered. After looking at each other, the two of them came to Lei Xingfeng and bowed to express their gratitude. They knew that their lives were saved this time. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, there is no need to thank me. As long as you can listen to my orders, there won't be a big problem. Group 3 and 4, follow me. He led the 4 people from the 3rd and 4th groups to the other side of the restriction. The large group of people also moved with them. The group of nearly 1,000 people looked very majestic. Arriving at the other end of the restriction, Lei Xingfeng said, "This time, for people will go in." Because the 4 cultivators in front of them were all fine, the 4 cultivators had successfully completed their investigation and returned. This gave the 4 of them a certain amount of confidence. The 4 of them stood at the edge of the restriction and waited. This time, Lei Xingfeng chose 4 entry points. He said, "I will take turns guiding you to enter. Remember, follow the order I tell you. You're number 1, number 2, number 3, and the last one is number 4. When I tell you to go, you have to listen to my orders. The others don't move. Is that clear?" With the 4 of them agreeing, who would dare to act recklessly? In the restriction, only by obeying orders could they survive. None of them were stupid, and none of them would be dishonest at this moment. This time, Lei Xingfeng wanted to test the restriction's reaction. Entering from 4 entry points, the restriction's reaction was different from the previous 2 probing attempts. The restriction's reaction was also different. Following Lei Xingfeng's instructions, the 4 of them gradually went deeper into the restriction. Everyone trembled in fear as they listened to his orders. However, no matter how careful Lei Xingfeng was, there was still one person who made a mistake. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Run back!" At this moment, they had to be decisive. When the 4 of them heard Lei Xingfeng shout, they immediately ran back. However, there was one person who reacted a little slower. When he was about to reach the edge of the restriction, he was still affected by the restriction and was instantly sent flying. Fortunately, when he reached the edge, he was hit by Lei Xingfeng's illusory giant hand from the side. That person tumbled in the air and fell to the ground. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Lei Xingfeng took out a low-level medicine and poured it directly into the person's mouth. He was considered to have saved his life. At this point, the probing attempt just now was completely useless. Lei Xingfeng didn't even have time to see the changes. He shook his head helplessly. Qing Mu said, "What's the problem?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's start with 4 more people. This time, the probing won't work." Everyone could see that Lei Xingfeng was very careful and didn't have any intention of sending people to their deaths. This time, the selection wasn't so difficult. Soon, the last group of people came forward. They found another 2 people and started probing again. Lei Xingfeng was very patient. The others weren't in a hurry either. No one wanted to die. They all knew that as long as Lei Xingfeng had the confidence to break the restriction, they wouldn't have to die. 4 people entered again. This time it was very smooth. When Lei Xingfeng shouted to run back, the 4 of them returned safely. Qing Mu asked, "Can you break the restriction?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Not at the moment. Let's go back first. I need to think. This restriction is too complicated. It's not that easy to break it." Qing Mu nodded and said, "Okay, then let's go back first." Hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. If they were to force their way into the restriction, it would be a tragedy. They didn't have to risk their lives. Everyone was happy to see that. Back at the camp, Lei Xingfeng said goodbye. He returned to his wooden hut and let Baspa and the others guard outside. He began to ponder the restriction himself. After probing the entire restriction, Lei Xingfeng felt that the design of the restriction was flawless. He couldn't find the restriction hub at all. Perhaps this restriction hub was in the inner layer. However, at present, he had a big question in his heart. This restriction hub shouldn't be untraceable. The movement of the restriction nodes indicated that the restriction hub should be in the restriction. If it was outside the restriction, the movement of the restriction nodes wouldn't be like this. Hugging his head, Lei Xingfeng thought hard. He pondered over this restriction. Perhaps it was an ancient restriction technique. This was the first time he had seen such a large-scale compound restriction. It was normal that he didn't understand it. A compound restriction was usually formed by combining several types of restrictions. Each of them had their own connections and interactions, and they could be more powerful than a single restriction. There were many problems to consider when designing a compound restriction. Therefore, it was very difficult to design a perfect restriction. Although compound restrictions were powerful, there were always flaws in them. Lei Xingfeng wanted to find these flaws. After probing a few times, Lei Xingfeng did find some problems. However, he couldn't make use of these exposed problems to break the restriction. I still need people to continue probing. If he sent people in again, they wouldn't be able to protect their lives. This was where Lei Xingfeng hesitated. After thinking for a long time, Lei Xingfeng couldn't think of a solution. He decided to discuss it with Lord Qingmu. The next day, Lei Xingfeng brought a group of people to Qingmu's residence. They were immediately escorted in by Qingmu's guards. Lei Xingfeng had already gained prestige and status in this camp. Even Lord Qingmu's guards didn't dare to neglect him. Qingmu, Feng Heng, and Big Eye were all there. Lei Xingfeng walked into the room. Qingmu said, "Have you found a solution?" Lei Xingfeng sat down and said hesitantly, "Not yet. However, I will find a solution soon." It's just that. He didn't know what to say. Qingmu saw his hesitation and said, "What's the problem? Just tell me. As long as I can solve it, it's not a problem." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "I need people to trigger the restriction and stay in it for a while. Well, if the people who go and can't hold on." His meaning was clear. If they couldn't hold on, they would die. This was a suicide mission. Feng Heng and Big Eye laughed. Feng Heng said, "That's not a problem. Big Eye and I can solve it. You don't need to worry." Qingmu nodded and said, "This is a necessary sacrifice. I'll give this mission to the two of you. Each of you will send 100 people. How about it?" Feng Heng and Big Eye agreed without hesitation. Xi and Feng stared speechlessly at the three of them. These three fellows all looked as if they didn't care at all. Xi and Feng suddenly reacted. This wasn't his previous life. This was the Ming-Zhe Alliance's disciplinary camp. The death of a few dozen or even 100 people wasn't a big deal. Feng Heng said, 200 people. Is that enough? Lei Xingfeng said, "We don't need that many people. 20 or 30 people will be enough. However, 10 of them must be Dao Lord-level experts." Feng Heng and Big, I felt a little pain to use Dao Lord-level experts. However, they didn't hesitate and nodded. "No problem. When do we go?" Xi and Feng spoke. "Let's go now." He then added, "We don't need a lot of people this time. Just bring your own guards and some people to investigate the restrictions. This way, they could prevent panic from spreading because this mission was suicidal." Feng Heng and Big Eye went out to gather people. Qingmu saw the two of them leave and said, Feng, my little brother asks you to complete a difficult mission. Then I can take you out of the disciplinary camp." Lei Xingfeng was overjoyed. He didn't want to stay in the disciplinary camp for long. It wasn't because it was difficult, but because there was no database. He couldn't learn and improve. Moreover, there was too much freedom in the disciplinary camp. He said, "Lord Qingmu, thank you for your kindness. I will work hard." Qingmu nodded with satisfaction. He had heard about Lei Xingfeng from Qingyan. He was a peerless genius and had an incredible ability in the Tao of restrictions. He was definitely a talent that needed to be roped in. This was one of the reasons why Qingmu took the initiative to come here. The other reason was that he coveted the ruins. One must know that these ruins often had unexpectedly good things. This time, he had a talent to rope in and also had good things to obtain. Therefore, he spent a lot of effort to get this opportunity. Qingmu said, "As long as you can solve this restriction, you will have completed the main mission. Then, I can apply for you to continue exploring the ruins with me and temporarily transfer you out of the disciplinary camp. When the exploration is complete, I can apply for you to return to the restriction main hall." Lei Xingfeng agreed. "Okay, I will help you solve the restriction problem in the ruins." Chapter 675. Qingmu was very satisfied. Lei Xingfeng's answer was exactly what he wanted. Other than wanting to rope in Lei Xingfeng, the most important thing was that he needed a restriction master to help him break some restrictions after entering the relic. Qingmu nodded and said, "Okay, You can follow me for the time being. Lei Xingfeng said, no problem. As long as the disciplinary camp lets you go, I have no objections. Qing Mu said, okay, let's go to the restriction. They should have brought people over. Lei Xingfeng stood up and the two walked out. Qing Mu and Lei Xingfeng brought a group of people to the edge of the restriction. Feng Heng and Big, I had already brought people over. There were a total of 30 cultivators, and 10 of them were Dao Lord Patriarchs. Lei Xingfeng said, we'll use 30 people to explore this time. Everyone has to be at the designated location. 5 people at a time. Listen to my command. 5 to a group was the limit of Exine Feng's command. Any more, and he wouldn't be able to command them. After all, it was extremely difficult to avoid the restriction nodes, and only Exine Feng could see them. If it was another restriction master, they wouldn't be able to command them. Even if it was a Grandmaster restriction master, they wouldn't be able to do anything. The first group successfully reached the designated location. Under Lei Xingfeng's command, the 5 people stood still. Then Lei Xingfeng ordered another group to go up. After half a day, all 30 people went deep into the restriction. Everyone was surrounded by restriction nodes. Once touched, the restriction would explode. Lei Xingfeng gave a wrong command and said, Number 17, take a step to the left. The Dao Lord Patriarch in the middle was number 17. There were 30 people in total, so there were 30 numbers. Everyone followed the instructions according to the numbers. The consequences of this mistake were immediately apparent. In an instant, the entire formation was activated. If everyone ran out at this time, at least 10 people would survive. However, Lei Xingfeng couldn't give such an order. He needed to see the entire formation in action. After 10 seconds, Lei Xingfeng shouted, retreat. However, he was only 10 seconds late. There was no way for these 30 people to escape. They could only desperately resist the killing of the restriction. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. He tried his best to remember the changes of the entire seal. These were the changes of the seal that cost the lives of 30 cultivators. He could not be careless no matter what. Ignoring everything else, he focused on the changes of the seal. Gradually, he understood that this great array had more than one seal hub. There were more than 3 seal hubs that interacted with each other. That was why Lei Xingfeng could not find their positions. The 30 people did not struggle for long in the formation. 3 minutes later, all 30 of them died in the formation. The one who lasted the longest was 3 minutes. This compound killing formation was very powerful. The cultivators were like rats thrown into a fire. They were quickly burned to death by the flames. They could only watch as 30 people were killed by the seal. Fortunately, there were not many people. Otherwise, they would have to forcibly suppress the seal. Lei Xingfeng sat cross-legged at the edge of the seal. He waited until the seal completely stopped. Then, he lowered his head and carefully thought about it. He repeatedly tried to find a loophole in the seal in his mind. No one dared to speak or move around. It was silent. Only the cold wind whistled across the ground. After a long time, Lei Xingfeng finally raised his head. Qing Mu and the others stared at Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng said, well, I still need to think about it. Everyone, please wait patiently. Qing Mu was straightforward. He said, okay, if you want to think about it, go back and think about it. Lei Xingfeng stood up absent-mindedly. He followed the others back. As he walked, he was still thinking. He returned to his residence in a daze. He walked into his room in a daze and sat down in a daze. He devoted himself to breaking the seal. With the death of 30 people, Lei Xingfeng completely understood how the seal worked. He also had a rough idea of how many seals there were. Now, it seemed that there were at least 3 seals combined. The most terrifying thing was that there were 3 seals. Each of them was stronger than the last. They were all offensive seals. When combined, their power was terrifying. According to Exine Feng's plan, the restrictions would come down layer by layer, and even if the person in the middle of the restrictions blocked the first one, the second one would follow, and if they blocked it again, then the third one would follow. If it was a powerful expert, such as a monarch-level expert, all 3 restrictions would be blocked, and then the 3 restrictions would merge into one, becoming a single restriction. Then, it would release its power again, and even a monarch-level expert would have to avoid the attack and retreat. This seal wasn't against Dao Lord Old Ancestors. It was against Monarch Realm experts. Lei Xingfeng couldn't set up such a seal. It was also quite difficult to break it. However, he saw it and studied it carefully. He was confident that he could learn and master this high-level seal. On the page of the Star Python record, Lei Xingfeng recorded countless seal symbols. After repeated deductions, he finally had a result. He confirmed the location of the 3 seal hubs. The only thing he couldn't be sure of was whether there was a 4th seal hub. This was a difficult problem for him to overcome. For 5 or 6 days, Lei Xingfeng hid in the house and pondered over it. Even when Baspa came in to urge him, he still couldn't find the location of the 4th seal hub. Lei Xingfeng scratched his head and rubbed his face. He got up and followed Baspa out. Big Eyes stood outside with a large group of people behind him. He said, "Brother Lei, it's almost time. Let's go to Lord Greenwood." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Okay, let's go." Big Eyes asked as they walked, "Have you found a way to break the seal?" Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "I don't know if I found a way. However, I have a clue. Let's go to Lord Greenwood first." Big Eyes said, "Okay, let's go quickly." Then he quickened his pace. When they arrived at Greenwood's residence, Feng Heng was already in the room. Lei Xingfeng and Big Eyes walked in. Greenwood said, "The deadline starts today. There's not much time to waste. Well, if we can break the seal first, then you will have a chance to be pardoned. I'm talking about some of you." Feng Heng and Big Eyes were overjoyed. If there was a chance to be pardoned, then they, as the commanders, would have a chance to be pardoned first. No one wanted to stay in the discipline camp. Even if they had status and power, they would rather leave the discipline camp. Greenwood asked again, "Feng, how are you? Can you break this seal?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I wasn't sure at first. This is a super large compound seal. From what I know, there are 3 killing formations combined. To break it, I need a large number of people to restrain the seal. If you do as I say, maybe there's a 50% chance of breaking it." Feng Heng and Big Eyes were stunned. "Only 50%? Greenwood smiled. 50% is enough for us to take a gamble. You're the only one who said you have a 50% chance of breaking it. The others don't even have a 10% chance. They have to rely on a large number of people to try and see if it works." Lei Xingfeng shook his head. This kind of compound seal is not afraid of using a large number of people. It's useless no matter how many people try to break it. Unless they're all monarch rank experts, there might be a chance of breaking it by force. Breaking it by force is the most clumsy method. Greenwood said, "How many people do you think will die this time?" Lei Xingfeng said, "If we're lucky, maybe a 5th of us will die. If we're unlucky, maybe half of us will die. I can't say for sure if there are more." Feng Heng, on the other hand, was still able to keep his cool. When he first started attacking the restriction, half of his men had already died, but he still couldn't break the restriction. Xi and Feng said that at most half of his men would die to break the restriction. This guess already made him quite satisfied. Big Eyes and Big Eyes couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This number was a little too high. Greenwood was very satisfied. His mission was to break the seal. As for how many people died, he didn't feel any pressure. Even if they all died, as long as the seal was broken, it would be considered a success. Very good. Feng will be in charge. Feng, don't worry. I don't care how many people die. I only care about you breaking the seal." Lei Xingfeng felt a chill in his heart. Ever since he joined the Mingzhe Alliance, he realized that the Mingzhe Alliance didn't care about human lives. Instead, they constantly wasted cultivators. It was a chilling sight. He knew that if the Mingzhe Alliance did this, he would never let his secret sect join the Mingzhe Alliance. Soon, Feng Heng and Big Eyes expressed their support. At this point, Lei Xingfeng was their life-saving straw. They had to grab hold of him no matter what. One had to know that if they were in charge, they might be wiped out and might not be able to break the seal in front of them. The large group of people gathered. This time, it was a full assembly. The supervision team that Greenwood brought also listened to Lei Xingfeng's command. Nearly 4,000 cultivator experts filled Lei Xingfeng with confidence. With so many people, he could easily arrange them. He had his own way of breaking this compound seal. Due to his understanding of seals, he knew how to suppress the entire seal and achieve his goal of finding the seal's core. This required him to carefully plan and command. Lei Xingfeng quickly recorded his thoughts on a page of the Star Python record. It gradually turned into a plan of action and divided the duties of his subordinates. This had to be led by him. A seal's reaction was ever-changing. To attack the seal's core and to prevent it from maximizing its effect, this required Lei Xingfeng's guidance. After gathering all the commanders, he divided them into countless teams and assigned them tasks. Lei Xingfeng suddenly felt that he was going to be annoyed to death. Xian Feng couldn't help but lament that he had been too naive at the start. It wasn't enough for these teams to just receive the mission. They needed time to practice. If not, once they entered the restriction and activated it, they would easily fall into chaos. Greenwood asked, "How is it?" Lei Xingfeng told him about his worries. Greenwood laughed. "This is easy. We will practice until we are familiar with it." The great training began. Chapter 676. I need everyone to arrive at the designated location in the shortest time possible. The first batch will consist of 800 people. The second batch will consist of 1,200 people, and 1,000 people will be in reserve. Your mission is to provide support and resist the restriction formation. Xian Feng ordered loudly. The entire team had already trained for 3 days. Everyone had their own position. Lord Qingmu, Feng Heng, and Big Eye Boss, as the supervisors, along with the small and big leaders, worked hard to get used to and practice the formation and movement. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "You can only come out of the formation alive if everyone goes all out." Every practitioner was serious. There was no way they couldn't be. According to Xian Feng's words, if one of them wasn't serious, then it would implicate everyone else. The true experts might be able to escape, but the others would be in deep trouble. Furthermore, they would need at least 2,000 people to break the formation. Anything less than that wouldn't be able to control the entire formation. In other words, they had to succeed this time. If they failed, they would not have enough people. At that time, all of them, including Lei Xingfeng, would be helpless against this restriction formation. The people in the discipline camp wanted to live, and Qingmu's men wanted to complete the mission. Both sides needed to succeed. The most important thing was that the people in the discipline camp could not afford to fail. Failure meant death, and Qingmu's men would fail the mission. Grasping the needs of both sides, Lei Xingfeng practiced hard. He could only achieve his goal if he was more familiar with his position and the various changes. Everyone had a point that they had to attack. This type of attack didn't need to be strong, but to suppress the explosion of restrictions. This type of attack was very impressive and wasn't something a normal restriction master could understand. AI Chi didn't understand it at all. He was once a high-level restriction master, but Xian Feng's attack was something he couldn't understand. However, AI Chi also had an important mission. He needed to obtain a restriction hub. Lei Xingfeng had already calculated the location of this restriction hub. Lei Xingfeng had assigned a few Dao Lord Patriarchs to protect AI Chi when the restriction was activated. AI Chi's true cultivation level was still too low. He was at the early stage Heaven Lord realm, which was the weakest cultivation level in the discipline camp. Without anyone to protect him, he might be killed by the restriction. Finally, Lei Xingfeng was satisfied with the drill. Everyone's positioning was very precise, but they still needed to be tested. It was just that he couldn't test it on an empty field, so he could only throw them directly into the restriction array and use actual combat to replace the test. Qingmu came to Lei Xingfeng's side and said, "How is it? Is that okay?" Lei Xingfeng sighed and said, "There's no problem on the whole. Everyone is working hard. However, I'm not sure what will happen after we enter the formation." Aoki said, "Do your best. I hope everything goes smoothly." Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, we can only do our best. I've arranged 2 people for some key points. If there's a problem, the other person will fill in." Aoki said, "In that case, let's break the formation. At this point, we can't retreat. We have to try. Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, we can't try. We can only succeed in one try. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble. Aoki nodded and waved his hand. Okay, we'll listen to you. All the lined-up teams stood at the edge of the restriction array. Lei Xingfeng repeatedly reminded them. Because of the importance, he didn't dare to relax at all. Standing in front of everyone, Lei Xingfeng said loudly, this time, we're not breaking the formation for me, the restriction master, but for everyone's survival. Therefore, no one is allowed to be careless. Stay alert and do every step strictly according to the requirements. Eliminate any interference and do your job well. This time, if everyone is serious and careful, I believe we can break this restriction array. If anyone dares to mess around, don't hesitate. Then the people on the side, don't hesitate. Kill him immediately. Is the mission clear? Lei Xingfeng shouted. Clear. Everyone shouted. Lei Xingfeng said, according to the previous rehearsal, a few teams will enter at the same time. Follow closely behind. When you reach the designated position, attack immediately. Teams of cultivators entered the restriction array at the same time. This was all calculated by Lei Xingfeng. As the large group of people entered the restriction array, the entire restriction array was triggered. However, it was quickly suppressed by the cultivators. All kinds of attacks fell on the restriction nodes, making the entire restriction array unable to operate smoothly. Layer after layer of suppression. Every cultivator was particular about their positioning. They each found their own spot and attacked the restriction nodes according to Lei Xingfeng's instructions. As long as the nodes were attacked, the entire restriction array's operation would be temporarily interrupted. With so many people attacking, the restriction nodes formed a chain that broke the restriction array's operation. This way, the restriction array would not be able to perform its function. This was the method that Lei Xingfeng came up with after racking his brains. Needless to say, with so many people entering and attacking the restriction nodes accurately, the entire restriction array would not be able to be activated and its power would not be able to be displayed. Lei Xingfeng watched as the last team entered. They quickly arrived at their destination and started attacking. He said happily, "Success. We suppressed it." As expected, although the entire restriction array was triggered, with so many people attacking at the same time, as long as the restriction nodes were formed, they would immediately be broken and the entire restriction array would not be able to display its power. After suppressing the restriction array's operation, Lei Xingfeng said to AI Chi, "Remember the place I specified?" AI Chi said, "No problem." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, I'm going in." He quickly ran towards the restriction array. Qing Mu followed closely behind. His task was very simple. Once he could not control the restriction array's explosion, he would be responsible for bringing Lei Xingfeng out. At that time, there would be a huge problem. Soon, they arrived at a point. Lei Xingfeng quickly used the illusory hand to open the snow. As expected, he found the restrictions core. It was a cylindrical restrictions core. Lei Xingfeng did not hesitate to pull it out and threw it into his hidden Lun space. He did not even have time to check it. He brought Qing Mu and ran towards another point. At this time, they were already at the back of the restriction array. They were 2,000 meters away from the edge. Qing Mu's eyes were full of admiration. This was the first time he saw such a method. After a while, Lei Xingfeng arrived at the second point. This time, it was slightly more troublesome. The illusory hand opened the snow, but did not find the restrictions core. He shouted, "Master, over there!" Qing Mu stretched out his two hands. The two illusory hands instantly sank into the snow. With a forceful pull, the entire snow was dug out. Lei Xingfeng immediately saw the restrictions core. It was a square box. Lei Xingfeng rushed over and put the restrictions core into his hidden Lun space. AI Chi also succeeded. Logically, the entire restriction array should have stopped operating. However, the restrictions threat was still there. Lei Xingfeng knew that he had missed the restrictions core. This kind of compound restriction array was a headache. He said, "Follow me." Bringing Qing Mu, Lei Xingfeng desperately ran outside. AI Chi was also running outside. Of course, he knew that the restriction was still operating. This meant that there was still a restrictions core in use. The few of them ran out of the array. Lei Xingfeng flew 10 meters into the air and carefully observed. Suddenly, a red light shot out from the depths of the restriction. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Block it!" Qingmu jumped up and raised his hand. With a slap, he scattered the red light. Lei Xingfeng said, "Protect me. I need time to observe." The entire restriction was completely delayed. With the 3 restrictions cores taken away, the array's power plummeted. Even if there was still a restrictions core, the array's power was already at its lowest. However, even so, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to be careless. If this array was allowed to operate at full power, at least a few hundred cultivators would die. This was something that Lei Xingfeng couldn't accept. The restrictions nodes were regenerating. Lei Xingfeng suddenly reacted. He shouted in the air, "Everyone, listen to my orders. I'll count to 3. Immediately run back. Don't King move. Also, maintain your attack power. If you understand, then answer me." The people in the array shouted, "Yes." Lei Xingfeng shouted, 1, 2, 3, run." Nearly 2,000 people in the array turned around and ran back. They all knew that whoever ran the fastest would survive. When the cultivators gave up attacking the nodes, the entire array began to operate quickly. Its power was gradually revealed. However, after Lei Xingfeng broke the 3 restrictions cores, the entire array lost its killing power. Of course, the Heaven Monarch realm cultivators with lower cultivation would suffer a little. However, because they turned around and ran back very quickly, only a few people with slower reactions suffered a little. However, their lives weren't threatened. Almost everyone escaped from the array. Lei Xingfeng was very satisfied with their speed. When the last few people escaped from the array, Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Not bad, not bad. You all escaped." 3 people died. Everyone was very satisfied with this. Qingmu didn't care how many people died. What he cared about was whether they could break the array. Qingmu asked, "Can this array be completely broken?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "I didn't dare to promise that I could break it. Now, I can definitely break this array." Qingmu praised, "Very good. It seems that we have a chance to be the first to break the array and enter the array." Lei Xingfeng said, "Sir, please help us." Qingmu smiled and said, "Just say it. As long as I can help, I won't refuse." Lei Xingfeng said, "Sir, your cultivation is the highest here. Can you break the array? You don't have to go too far. Just break it and come out. I need to see how the array works." Feng Heng and Big I were very grateful. With Sir Qingmu breaking the array, they didn't need to sacrifice their lives. Chapter 677. Qingmu said, "No problem. I'll go and attack the array. You take command." He agreed readily. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, let's begin." Qingmu immediately began to attack the Grand Seal array. Although 3 of the Grand Seal array had been taken away, the Grand Seal could still unleash a certain amount of power. Of course, this kind of power was useless against a Monarch realm expert like Qingmu. This was also the reason why Lei Xingfeng asked Qingmu for help. He could observe the operation of the array more clearly. Qingmu directly crashed into the formation, and in Xian Feng's eyes, Qingmu instantly came into contact with countless restriction nodes, activating the formation. As the array operated, Lei Xingfeng began to quickly deduce the location of the restriction hubs. This should be the main hub of the entire array. He stared at the operation of the array and deduced the location of the restriction hubs bit by bit. The cultivators outside were all staring at the array. However, they could not see what Lei Xingfeng could see. The only thing that made them envious was that Qingmu was very carefree and dashing about in the array. He did not care about the array's attacks at all. AI Qi understood that if they had not taken away 3 of the restriction hubs, with the array's power, even Qingmu would not dare to act so recklessly. Now, this array was actually an ice-type array. The bone-piercing cold seeped out from the array, forcing everyone to retreat. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng did not dare to fly into the air. Instead, he ran back and forth at the edge of the array, observing the array's changes. After a full 15 minutes, Lei Xingfeng shouted, "It's done. Hurry up and get out of the array." Qing Mu let out a long laugh and directly charged out of the Grand Restriction Array. This little bit of restriction array couldn't trap him at all. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, that's all for today. I need to go back and think about it." He could not immediately deduce the location of the restriction hubs. However, as long as he was given time, he would be able to deduce it step by step. This was also a skill that he had obtained from his previous life. It was like a logical relationship, like a mathematical relationship. Any change had a cause and effect. This was also one of Lei Xingfeng's secret weapons. Solving the array was the process of learning the array. This was something that Lei Xingfeng valued greatly. After returning to his wooden house, Lei Xingfeng took out the Star Python record and carefully recorded everything that he observed. Relying on his superior memory in this life, he recorded everything that he observed into the Star Python record. Then, he carefully analyzed and thought. Slowly, Xi and Feng found some clues. After spending 2 days, he finally figured out the location of the restriction's central hub. As long as he could obtain this central hub, this large restriction formation would be completely broken. Thinking about how he could break this restriction and obtain its components, it would be the same as obtaining this compound-type large-scale restriction. This harvest was better than anything else. This was a powerful restriction left from ancient times. Lei Xingfeng's heart was burning. He was already very satisfied with the restriction hubs that he obtained before. However, this set was different. This was a set of compound, large-scale restrictions. There were a total of 4 restriction hubs. With this set of restrictions as a reference, he could design his own compound restriction hubs. This set of large-scale compound restrictions was very complicated. After this experience, Lei Xingfeng's understanding of restrictions had greatly improved. He began to understand some of the information and knowledge that he had previously come into contact with. Just this result alone made him feel that this trip was not in vain. The next day, Lei Xingfeng led a large group of people to the edge of the restriction hubs. Qing Mu asked, "How are we going to break the formation this time?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "This time, I will break the formation myself. In addition, you all have to be prepared. Once the formation is broken, the puppets inside may come out. Except for the people who are protecting me, everyone else needs to prepare for battle." Qing Mu said, "This has been prepared for a long time. When you go in, we will start preparing here." This time, Lei Xingfeng didn't bring a single person. He had to rely on his eyesight to avoid the restriction hubs. In other words, he had to rely on his own ability to enter the formation and make it unable to operate. This level of skill was frighteningly high. Lei Xingfeng himself designed a way to enter. Everyone watched him as he slowly walked in. Sometimes he took a few steps to the left, and sometimes he took a step back. Then he took a few steps to the right. Strangely, the restriction hubs didn't react at all. It was as if he was walking in a maze. Lei Xingfeng looked at each restriction hubs and avoided them. Little by little, he walked into the depths of the formation. Someone whispered, "It doesn't seem difficult, does it?" AI Chi snorted and said, "Not difficult. Even a grandmaster of restriction may not be able to do it. Such a restriction hubs can't detect him at all. This kind of understanding of restriction is already beyond the reach of ordinary restriction masters. This level of understanding of restriction is really too high." Qing Mu seemed to be very interested. He said, "Can my brother do it?" AI Chi and Master Qing Yin had always been at odds. However, he didn't dare to belittle Master Qing Yin in front of him. He only said, "I don't know. Master, you can ask him later." Qing Mu nodded and didn't say anything. He just stared at Lei Xingfeng. The closer he got to the restriction hubs, the more restriction hubs there were. Lei Xingfeng knew that just touching a few restriction hubs wasn't enough to make the restriction hubs work. The reason was easy to understand. Lei Xingfeng only needed to touch as few restriction hubs as possible to reach his destination. Finally, Lei Xingfeng saw the place he guessed. It was actually a rock that was half exposed from the ground. It was already covered with snow. Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment. He didn't dare to dig slowly. He wanted to end the battle in one go. There were too many restriction hubs around. This was different from when the restriction hubs were operating. If the restriction hubs were operating quickly, the restriction hubs around would scatter. Now, they were all gathered at the main restriction hub. If he wanted to dig, he would definitely touch the restriction hubs. Lei Xingfeng couldn't think of a way to dig successfully without touching the restriction hubs. In the end, he thought it was reckless. When it was time to make a decision, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't hesitate. Two large illusory hands suddenly appeared and grabbed onto the boulder, lifting it up violently. Xi and Feng saw a perfectly round ball that shined brightly, and in an instant, the restriction was activated. Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to grab the round ball. He knew in his heart that this was the main restriction hub. However, he didn't have time to grab it before the restriction hubs exploded. Lei Xingfeng already knew this result. He only had time to take a look at the main restriction hub before his body entered the mirror realm through the secret door. The entire restriction lasted for 5 minutes. It could be said that other than Emperor rank experts who could barely resist it, peak heaven monarchs like Lei Xingfeng definitely couldn't hold on for more than 10 seconds. Therefore, the moment he lifted the huge rock, he returned to the mirror realm to hide. This place was more than 3,000 meters away from the edge of the restriction. Once the restriction hubs exploded, no one would be able to see the changes here. No one would know that Lei Xingfeng was hiding in the mirror realm. Lei Xingfeng returned to the mirror realm and silently waited for nearly 10 minutes. Then, he returned to the original place through the secret door. At this time, the restriction hubs had completely calmed down. Lei Xingfeng could clearly see the round ball of the restriction hubs. He used the illusory hands to pick it up. The moment he touched it, he had already stored the restriction hub into his hidden lens space. In an instant, the entire restriction lost its effect. Lei Xingfeng didn't stop at all. He turned around and ran back. Then, Lei Xingfeng heard a strange sound behind him. There were also creaking sounds. Then, there were footsteps behind him. At first, it was relatively soft. Soon, the ground began to tremble. Lei Xingfeng ran and looked back. He couldn't help but curse. Damn it, this kind of puppet. The huge puppet was 7 to 8 meters tall. Each step it took was 10 meters. When it stepped on the ground, the entire ground trembled. Lei Xingfeng didn't want to face such a huge puppet. And it wasn't just one puppet behind him. It was a group of puppets. Lei Xingfeng didn't even know how many there were. Anyway, no matter how many there were, he wouldn't turn around and risk his life. He could only run for his life. With a distance of 3,000 meters, Xi and Feng's speed was much faster than the puppets. With lightning speed, he ran back. Seeing Qing Mu standing there from afar, the entire group of practitioners formed a line of defense. Qing Mu saw Lei Xingfeng run back and smiled. Of course, he saw the puppet army. However, he didn't put them in his eyes. Seeing Lei Xingfeng run back, he only shouted, "Come to me." Lei Xingfeng rushed out and rushed to Qing Mu's side in a few breaths. This distance wasn't enough to tire him out. He smiled and said, "The formation is broken." Qing Mu smiled and said, "Don't worry. I will remember your contribution. Go to the back. We won't need you for the next battle." Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Okay." He rushed into the group and quickly ran to the back of the group. Soon he saw Ai Qi and the group. They were all his guards. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go back. Go back." With this group of guards, he quickly retreated a few hundred meters. Then he released the steel puppets and had them quickly stand in their respective positions. Ai Qi said, "Why did you release the seal?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Nonsense. What else can I do? It's to save my life." The first wave of puppets were all huge beast-shaped puppets. Their bodies were covered in ice and snow. In Lei Xingfeng's opinion, these puppets' strength was not bad. They were comparable to beginner heaven monarchs. However, how could these puppets be compared to a real army of practitioners? In less than half an hour, under Qing Mu's command, they were all destroyed. Not a single puppet was left. The snowy ground was filled with puppet fragments. Immediately after, the second wave of puppets rushed over. This time, they were human-shaped and beast-headed puppets. Lei Xingfeng was very familiar with these puppets. The puppets here were all wearing thick armor. They held weapons in their hands and rushed over in an orderly formation. This time, many of the cultivators were injured and killed. Chapter 678. Under the command of Qing Mu, Feng Heng, and Big Eye, the second wave of puppets was also destroyed. At this time, the cultivators had suffered a few hundred casualties. Soon after, the third wave of puppets appeared. Qing Mu frowned. He did not expect there to be so many puppets. Moreover, they were getting stronger and stronger. They could easily destroy the first wave, but the second wave was a little difficult. How strong would the third wave be? He did not know. When the third wave of puppets arrived, Greenwood realized that something was wrong. The strength of this wave of puppets was beyond his expectations. The cultivators could only hold on for less than 5 minutes before their formation completely collapsed. Even if he went on a killing spree, there were so many puppets that he couldn't kill them all. Just as Qing Mu was in a terrible state, he heard a series of thunder. In an instant, he saw a forbidden killing array appear behind him. Lightning flashed and immediately swallowed the puppets that were rushing over. After being stunned for a moment, Qing Mu immediately reacted. This was Lei Xingfeng's killing array. With this restrictive killing formation, there was room to maneuver. Qing Mu loudly shouted for everyone to retreat. Following Qing Mu's order, the battle line that had already collapsed completely collapsed. The third wave of puppets were all humanoid puppets that looked exactly like humans. They were 2 meters tall, and their bodies were purplish-green. It was unknown what material they were made of, but their movements were more agile. Their attacks were powerful, especially their defense. Even a monarch-level expert would not be able to destroy them with one attack. They would need at least 2 attacks to destroy them. As for the Tao Lord-level old ancestors, they needed a few people to kill a single humanoid puppet, so it was inevitable that they would collapse. There were not many puppets in the third wave. There were less than 1,000 humanoid puppets. After everyone worked together to kill 200 to 300, the remaining 500 humanoid puppets were completely unstoppable. Lei Xingfeng's thunder-killing array appeared at this time. It was equivalent to having a huge obstacle. Qing Mu shouted for everyone to run around the thunder-killing array, luring the humanoid puppets into it. Smart cultivators would run around the thunder-killing array, while stupid people would run around randomly. Those who ran around would rarely be able to save their lives. Qing Mu directly rushed into the thunder-killing array. The thunderbolts of the thunder-killing array couldn't hurt him. The purpose of entering the killing array was to protect Lei Xingfeng. This was the key. Lei Xingfeng sensed that Qing Mu had entered the killing array and could not help but be overjoyed. With him around, they would be safe. He immediately adjusted the killing array and opened up a path, guiding him to his side. Qing Mu said, "A phone. How did you succeed so quickly?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "I knew it wouldn't be that simple. If the puppets were so easy to destroy, they wouldn't be so powerful in the beginning. As for setting up restrictions quickly, this is a new method that I discovered." Qing Mu said, "All right, with this restriction, I can support and defend." Lei Xingfeng handed him a restriction card and said, "This is for the best. With this restriction card, the lightning won't hit you." Qing Mu said happily, "Great." Even if the thunder-killing array couldn't threaten him, the dense lightning would still make it difficult for him. It would be best if he could avoid it. Gradually, the humanoid puppets were attracted over. One by one, they rushed into the thunder-killing array. At first, there weren't many of them. Lei Xingfeng kept giving out restriction cards to the stronger experts so that they could work together to attack the humanoid puppets. Qing Mu was even more powerful, continuously attacking. The thunder-killing array was like a millstone, slowly grinding away at the humanoid puppets. The cultivators running in circles outside were the bait that attracted the humanoid puppets, continuously luring them into the thunder-killing array. Lei Xingfeng also took the opportunity to capture the humanoid puppets. One had to know that even if he had a gold-class humanoid beast, it was still far inferior to the humanoid puppets. The humanoid puppets were truly powerful. Lei Xingfeng knew where the weaknesses of the humanoid puppets were. He just needed to test it out, and he would find out. Thus, he asked Feng Heng and Big Eye for help. Both of them were mid-class Dao, Lord Patriarchs, and were extremely powerful. Qing Mu also came to join the fun, but the three of them suppressed one of the humanoid puppets. Lei Xingfeng grabbed at the back of the humanoid puppet's neck and pulled out an energy crystal. The humanoid puppet immediately froze. Qing Mu smiled and said, "Not bad. Grab it." Due to the numbing effect of the lightning, every time the lightning struck the humanoid puppet, although it couldn't destroy it, it could slow its movements. This gave Lei Xingfeng a lot of opportunities. Gradually, the number of humanoid puppets decreased. Lei Xingfeng had captured at least 50 to 60 humanoid puppets. However, in the chaos, he didn't know the exact number. What made Lei Xingfeng the happiest was that Qing Mu and the others weren't around to collect the humanoid puppets. Instead, they gave all the humanoid puppets they obtained to him. Creating puppets was a specialized skill. The Mingzhe Alliance also had a department that specialized in creating puppets. However, it had never received much attention. Most of the puppets produced were used for work, and very few were used for battle. Most of the humanoid puppets were destroyed, and only a small number were captured by Lei Xingfeng. There were less than 100 humanoid puppets, which made Lei Xingfeng extremely satisfied. He knew that these puppets were very difficult to obtain, especially such powerful ones. These puppets could be made into humanoid puppets with restriction components. They had strong defensive abilities, which meant that the restriction killing array wouldn't be easily destroyed when setting up the array, ensuring the stability of the array. Relying on Lei Xingfeng's restriction killing array, the humanoid puppets were slowly whittled down until the cultivator's strength surpassed theirs. Under Qing Mu's command, the remaining humanoid puppets were all destroyed. Lei Xingfeng put away the restriction killing array. Qing Mu, Feng Heng, and Yin began to check on the cultivators. This battle was very tragic. There were more than 3,000 cultivators in the team, but less than 1,000 of them were unharmed. Nearly 1,000 of them were dead, and there were also cultivators with various injuries. The real losses were almost all caused by the humanoid puppets. The third wave, which was also the last wave of humanoid puppets, would have killed the entire team if it wasn't for Lei Xingfeng's restriction killing array. Of course, the true experts might have been able to escape, but they definitely couldn't have left so many people alive. Qing Mu praised. With a restriction master, the strength of the entire team had more than doubled. If they couldn't withstand the third wave of humanoid puppets, this mission would be greatly reduced. If they defeated the third wave of humanoid puppets, the mission would be completely completed. It should be known that the Mingzhe Alliance's missions, regardless of whether they were forced or voluntarily accepted, as long as they completed them, the rewards would be extremely generous. Moreover, this was the last mission for the prisoners of the punishment camp. Regardless of whether they completed it or not, once this mission was over, their mission in the ruins would be completely over. The mission of exploring the ruins had nothing to do with them. There were countless good things in the ruins, so how could the prisoners of the punishment camp benefit? In fact, if it wasn't for Lei Xingfeng, even if the Mingzhe Alliance sent Elder Qing Mu, they probably wouldn't be able to break this second layer of restriction. Basically, the prisoners of the punishment camp wouldn't be more than 100 people alive. At that time, the Mingzhe Alliance would probably send a restriction master over. When it was time to clean up the battlefield, Lei Xingfeng ordered them to collect the puppet fragments. Of course, he only wanted the humanoid puppet fragments and didn't care about the rest. In addition, he led a large group of people to start digging for the restriction components underground. This was something he had to collect. Fortunately, he only collected the restriction hubs when breaking the formation. This compound restriction formation couldn't be broken by force. If it was broken by force, a large number of restriction components would be destroyed. Even if they were dug out, they wouldn't be of much use. After obtaining a complete set of compound restriction components, including 3 restriction hubs and a main restriction hub. Lei Xingfeng's harvest was great. Even before entering the ruins, he had already obtained 2 sets of restriction components and nearly 100 humanoid puppets. The strength of these puppets was comparable to a Dao Lord Patriarch. In particular, the defensive strength of the humanoid puppets really made Lei Xingfeng admire and feel satisfied. If they were combined with the restriction components, the weakness of his movement restriction would be compensated. After returning to the camp, Lei Xingfeng followed Qing Mu to his residence. As the commanders of the team, Feng Heng and Big I also followed them into the room. After sitting down, Qing Mu said, "I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. It was all thanks to a Feng that we were able to win. By the way, you guys did a good job this time. I can report a few people to come out of the punishment camp. There's already 1 Feng. Do you two want to leave?" Feng Heng and Big I immediately stood up and said, "Thank you for your help, sir. We want to leave." What a joke. If they didn't want this opportunity, would they want to go back and be prisoners? No matter what, they had to leave the punishment camp first. That place was simply too terrible. Qing Mu said, "According to my authority, I can pardon some people based on the completion of this mission. However, the number is very small. You guys can get this quota." Lei Xingfeng hesitated and said, "Can you give me a few more quotas?" Qing Mu said, "You want AI Chi and the others to be pardoned too?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes. Since you came with me, you always want to leave with me." Qing Mu said, "Well, give me your names. You can only try. If you don't succeed, don't blame me." Lei Xingfeng agreed and said, "Okay. One is AI Chi, one is Baspa, one is Mai Yi, and one is Jianyi Wei. That's all." Actually, he could have signed up a few more people. They were all guards who had been recruited later on. However, he knew that if Greenwood agreed to sign up for these few people, it would be a very amazing thing. Feng Heng and Big I also wanted to say something, but Qing Mu reached out and stopped them. He said, "Don't say anything. It's not easy to give you 2 quotas. As for your subordinates, don't even think about it. It's impossible to take them out." The 2 of them were immediately dejected. They had been in the disciplinary camp for a long time and had a few trusted subordinates. It was normal for them to want to take them away. However, it was impossible for Qing Mu to pardon so many people. This time, it was because they had made a great contribution by breaking 2 restrictions. Chapter 679. Qing Mu said, "You should worry about yourselves first. Once you're pardoned, where will you go?" The 2 of them were instantly dazed. It must be understood that when they had first entered this place, they had been early-stage Dao Lords. However, they had been able to break through in the disciplinary camps. It was only because they were strong and skilled that they had been able to rob, cheat, or even oppress others that they had been able to acquire the materials needed to break through. Were mid-stage Dao Lords supposed to return to their original schools? That bit of resources simply wasn't enough to squander, but if they didn't go back to their original sect, where could they go? Qing Mu said, "I believe you don't want to return to your original sect. You're still not qualified to go to the Ming-Zhe Alliance's headquarters. Although intermediate Dao Lords are stronger than most Dao Lords, you might not be able to find a suitable position in the Ming-Zhe Alliance's headquarters. If it's an ordinary position, it's almost impossible to gather the materials for the next advancement. What do you plan to do?" The 2 of them looked at each other. After a while, Feng Heng said, "Lord Qing Mu, can you give us some suggestions?" Qing Mu smiled. "You're right beside you. If you want to go to the Ming-Zhe Alliance's headquarters, a Feng is fine. Be his guard. Haha, it's solved. Everyone knows that restriction masters are the richest group of people." Lei Xingfeng could not help but smile bitterly. The 2 intermediate Dao Lord Patriarchs were very strong, but he might not be able to afford them. If they were guards, they would need to help gather cultivation materials. Lei Xingfeng had the entire hidden sect behind him. Although he was extremely rich, most of the materials he gathered would be given to the hidden sect. Feng Heng and Big I looked at Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "Lord Qing Mu, I can't afford it either." Qing Mu said, "That's true." 2 intermediate Dao lords would consume too many materials. This. He scratched his head, not knowing what to do. Feng Hung reacted quickly. He said, I don't need the free materials. Take me to the Ming-Zhe Alliance's headquarters. I'll earn the materials myself. Qing Mu said, that's fine. Big Eye also reacted. Disregarding everything else, just entering the Ming-Zhe Alliance was extremely difficult for them. Even though they were already mid-level Dao Lord Patriarchs, if they didn't have any connections, they wouldn't be able to enter the Ming-Zhe Alliance at all. He said, yes, I don't need free materials. I just want Brother Lei to bring me to the Ming-Zhe Alliance. Since Feng Hung and Big I had both agreed to be his bodyguards, Lei Xingfeng couldn't very well refuse. However, with two mid-level Dao Lord Patriarchs by his side, the number of people around him instantly increased. Qing Mu said, Feng, what do you think? Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, all right, I won't restrict the two of you. When you reach the Ming-Zhe Alliance, if you have any connections, you can leave at any time. Feng Hung and Big Eye revealed a satisfied expression. They didn't know that in the Ming-Zhe Alliance, either your cultivation level was high enough to be a peak Dao Lord or Monarch, or you had special means such as being a restriction master or an alchemist. Others didn't have a good life in the Ming-Zhe Alliance. With their cultivation level, they were indomitable existences in the sect. However, in the Ming-Zhe Alliance, they didn't care about anything. Qing Mu smiled and said, all right, go back and deal with your subordinates. Find a suitable successor. You guys are really lucky this time. Feng is here. Otherwise, you guys would have died in the restriction. Feng Hung and Big Eye stood up and bid farewell. Lei Xingfeng also stood up and said, I'll go back first. Lord Qing Mu, do you have anything else to say? Qing Mu waved his hand and said, nothing. Go ahead. If there's anything, I'll send someone to invite you. Lei Xingfeng agreed as he walked. When he reached the door, Baspa and the others looked at him eagerly. Ai Chi said, what's the reward? Lei Xingfeng said, nothing. There's a few spots, but I'm not sure yet. I already have one spot, so do Feng Hung and Big Eye. Ai Chi said anxiously, do we have any? Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to say anything. Although he also asked for a few more spots, he knew that Qing Mu might not be able to get it. Ai Chi suddenly became listless. He said, Brother Lei, why didn't you help us? Sai, it's over. Without Brother Lei, how can we survive in the disciplinary camp? Baspa, Uncle Ma, and Jianwei were all dejected. No one wanted to continue living in the disciplinary camp. Lei Xingfeng looked at the four of them and couldn't bear it. He said, I'll fight for it. Suddenly, the four of them stared at Lei Xingfeng eagerly, like four puppies who saw food. Lei Xingfeng continued, I'll fight for it, but I don't know if Master Qing Mu can do it. Also, Feng Hung and Big I might have to join my guard team. Ai Chi said, they'll join the guard team? Well, if they don't join, they won't be able to go to the Ming-Zhe Alliance. They're lucky. Baspa said, Brother Lei, thank you. No matter if it works or not, thank you. The others also understood and came forward to thank him. Lei Xingfeng said, we came here together. If we can go back together, that's the best. But I can't guarantee that you'll get a spot. I heard that the competition is fierce. In fact, Lei Xingfeng didn't know that whether it was Ai Chi, Baspa, or Uncle Ma, there were people who influenced the list. Of course, Jianwei didn't have anyone to help him. If he got a spot, it was Lei Xingfeng who fought for it. This was something that no one knew with Ai Chi and the other two. If they died on the battlefield, then no matter how powerful their families were, they wouldn't be able to save them. Thus, Xi and Feng's contribution was still huge. Ai Chi also said, Brother Lei, don't say anything. If you get out of here, come to me if you need any materials. Although I can't solve all of them, I'll do my best. Baspa and Uncle Ma also reacted. At this time, they had to build a good relationship with Lei Xingfeng. Both of them said that if they got out of here, they would help Lei Xingfeng get materials. Jianwei said gloomily, Sai, I don't have the ability. Brother Lei, even if I want to be a guard, it's difficult. Do you want me? He looked at Lei Xingfeng pitifully. Now, It seemed that being able to be Lei Xingfeng's guard was definitely a good thing. Lei Xingfeng said, "If you could get a spot and want to follow me, I won't object. Rather than find a stranger to be a guard, it was better to give it to someone he knew." This was something that Lei Xingfeng understood very well. This time, they were brought to the disciplinary camp. He didn't know how the 4 guards were doing. If they couldn't bear it, they might leave. Of course, once they left, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't want them anymore. With hope of getting out of here, these people's expressions were very good. The only thing that was a little uneasy was whether they could get a spot. Unfortunately, this was the continent where the ruins were located and not the Mingzhe Alliance. Their family's power couldn't match up at all. Otherwise, they would have gotten some high-grade materials as a bribe. The guard outside came in and reported, "Master Feng Heng, Master Big Eye is here." Lei Xingfeng knew why they were here and said, "Let them in." Feng Heng and Big Eye walked into the room. Feng Heng said, "About what we were talking about, that is, if you go back to the Mingzhe Alliance, will you bring us along?" Lei Xingfeng said, "If you are willing, I have no problem. But in terms of materials, I think it will be difficult for me to help you." Feng Heng and Big Eye were full of helplessness. There was no better job than being Lei Xingfeng. The two of them said that they didn't need Lei Xingfeng to consider the materials. They would slowly gather them. In fact, in the disciplinary camp, the two of them had obtained a lot of materials. They had people under them. After being in the disciplinary camp for so long, there were always people begging them. The price was all kinds of materials. The two of them had collected a lot. AI Chi said, "Restriction Masters can get some materials from the Mingzhe Alliance's restriction main hall. Brother Lei doesn't need to gather them." Lei Xingfeng said, "Whether it is Feng Heng or Big Eye, there should be a place for you to stay. Follow me first. If there is a better place, I won't stop you." Feng Heng shook his head and said, "Since we are following you, I don't think we will leave. Unless you hate me, then there is no other way." Lei Xingfeng said, "Hate me? No, I'm a very easygoing person." AI Chi said, "Actually, I want to follow Brother Lei. Unfortunately, I can't be a guard." Bath said domineeringly, "Forget it. You are the devil incarnate in the Mingzhe Alliance. Let alone a guard, you can't even be an assistant. You are too lazy." AI Chi raised his hands and surrendered. All right. I admit that I am lazy." Lei Xingfeng was still very happy. No matter what, with 2 mid-level Dao lords as guards, he had a greater guarantee of survival. Feng Heng said, "We plan to follow you now. We will tell our subordinates. Fortunately, most of us can go back alive. We are quite lucky." Big Eye sighed and said, "Generally, as long as the people of the discipline camp can go back alive after a mission, the missions in the future won't be too heavy." Lei Xingfeng ignored him and said, "Will the people of the discipline camp retreat?" Big Eye said, "No, they will stay outside. They will not be able to go to the next level of restriction." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "That is for sure. After the second level of restriction is broken, the people of the discipline camp will not be able to come into contact with the ruins." 3 days later, Lei Xingfeng brought a group of guards to Qingmu's residence. Feng Heng and Yin had both given up their positions as leaders and came to be Xian Feng's guards. Of course, they no longer had the right to enter Qingmu's room. Their status had dropped a lot, but the two of them were willing to do so. Lei Xingfeng entered the room and said, "Lord Qingmu, you called for me?" Qingmu said, "Yes, come with me to the teleportation gate to pick someone up." Lei Xingfeng said, "Pick someone up? Who?" Qingmu said, "The Mingzhe Alliance sent people over to take over the next step of the exploration. Yes, there are many experts and restriction masters." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.